Any life, even the most shameful, can be wrapped up in a beautiful wrapper. If you tell it in a calm voice and present the negative character as a victim of circumstances, you are sure to feel sympathy and regret for him. The fact is that many bad people have charisma, strength, cunning, and we sincerely believe that they were not always bad, because often they made such circumstances, and we, without noticing, find excuses for their disreputable deeds. But today we will not justify illegal actions and certainly will not cover anyone. After learning about this case, you will decide for yourself whether their actions are worth justification. On April 4th, 2015, emergency services received an eerie call from a local resident. A terrified male voice yelled into the phone to the dispatcher that he had gone into a friend's living room to turn on the lights and check on him, but when he went up to the second floor of the room, he saw blood everywhere. The victim's friend reported that everything was covered in blood, and the injured man was not breathing. After police arrived, the unincorporated community of Ellet in Montgomery County was shocked by the brutal murder of 59-year-old local resident Charles Taylor. The crime scene looked like the subject of nightmares and resembled the set of a horror movie. Blood was everywhere, on the carpet, on the paintings, and the couch where the murdered man was located was completely soaked in blood. The brutality of the crime made it look like a grudge drama. After all, definitely, the attacker wanted not only Charles's death, but also to cause him as long as possible unbearable pain, time after time stabbing a sharp knife. The examination of the house showed no visible signs of forced entry, and Charles's bloody body was lying upstairs in his room, which meant that the criminal knew the house and acted decisively. The forensic medical examination found that Charles Taylor suffered blunt force trauma to the back of his head and 31 stab wounds, as a result of which he died. Charles Taylor was considered a kind and generous man, had an adult son with whom he had a good relationship. He adored his 2 grandchildren and daughter-in-law Amanda. This is the part of life that people see and draw conclusions about the family's well-being. But was this really how things were in the Taylor family? So let's get to the bottom of this ugly family drama. The initial investigation was relatively slow as the police didn't have many leads to work with. They started looking for Charles's acquaintances, but couldn't find anyone who had a motive or intent to harm him. Then came the theory that it was someone in Charles Taylor's family, and it didn't take them long to find out the name of the assailant. In fact, that's when investigators got lucky and were approached by a crime blogger with photos of Amanda Taylor posing for selfies against Charles's lifeless body. She has been put on the wanted list. Amanda Barbara Nicole Taylor was born on March 27, 1991 in Christiansburg, Virginia. There is not much information about Amanda's childhood. It is only known that it was difficult because both of her parents spent some time in prison. Amanda's youth began with a lot of problems that she created for herself. After meeting Mariah Roback, Amanda's illicit life began a merry-go-round. Together, they got into a lot of trouble. On October 23, 2005, according to Montgomery County Sheriff's records, when the girls were just 12 years old, Amanda and Mariah jumped into a car and ran away from home, which they were charged with unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. In early April 2006, Amanda was charged with disorderly conduct at the middle school she attended. She yelled that she hated the place, hated all the people there, and would definitely kill them all. This incident definitely went beyond the threshold of the standard teen drama, and this is only a small known portion of Amanda's police station record. In 9th grade, Amanda met Rex Taylor, who was 2 years older than her, and they began dating. Amanda and Rex were born on the same day, March 27th. They both considered it a sign from above. Amanda dropped out of school completely when she found out she was expecting a baby. She and Rex married and soon had a son, but motherhood did not stop her criminal tendencies. The years of her married life were also punctuated by more run-ins with the law. The number of reports on Amanda Taylor in the police station grew exponentially, so recorded another attempted absconding after stealing a vehicle, a conviction for possession of alcohol, numerous domestic altercations, and a criminal record for possession of a controlled substance. Her husband, Rex Taylor, was not from a model family either, and despite their devotion to each other, Rex desperately struggled with addictions and the depression they caused. From the age of 15, the young lad had an addiction to illegal substances. After a while, the couple had a daughter, and at first, it seemed that Amanda still took up the mind and became a model mother and wife, let even a little not like all American women in their 20s, and with piercings, tattoos, and certainly daily selfies in social networks. But also the family relationship between Amanda and Rex was not quite ordinary. The couple fanatically studied biographies of famous serial criminals and wrote letters to them in prison. Amanda began fantasizing about becoming a criminal herself. But before Amanda could realize this deadly dream, tragedy struck the family. The complicated relationship between the spouses was overshadowed by Amanda's suspicions of her husband's infidelity. In April 2014, their paths finally separated, and the couple parted. Rex returned to the family home, where he again began to use illegal substances. 4 months after the move, his lifeless body was discovered in a shed on the property. He had hanged himself on the day of his son's 7th birthday. After losing her beloved husband, Amanda lived with her mother and friend Mariah Robach from time to time. While staying with her friend Mariah, she also began a friendship with Sean Ball, another member of the Robach family. On March 27, 2015, on their shared birthday, Amanda went to Rex's grave and attempted to end her life. She was rescued and forcibly admitted to a psychiatric hospital because her antics and thought processes were clearly distorted and could bring harm to her and others. But despite her mother's insistence and pleas for prolonged treatment, Amanda was quickly released home. Once she was released from the psychiatric hospital, the situation seemed to escalate because of her unstable personality problems. So Mariah and her husband asked Amanda to move out. They also kicked out Mr. Ball, who had fallen madly in love with Amanda. It was during this period of time, when her only true friends seemed to have turned their backs on her, that Amanda developed a deep desire to kill, and the inspiration for this was none other than her late husband, Rex Taylor. She wanted to do Rex justice and make him proud of her, and to do that, it was imperative that someone be skillfully taken dead. During his lifetime, Rex also had a fascination with serial criminals, so much so that his interest had long gone beyond a hobby. He socialized closely with criminals, and it was a friendship he was proud of in his lifetime. Imagine walking out of your house one morning to your mailbox and finding an envelope addressed to you from a notorious serial criminal who was arrested in 1980. Inside the envelope, you are relieved to find no creepy mementos, but instead find a birthday card for your young child along with a handwritten message. Some might argue that such a message would be as horrifying as receiving a severed finger or strand of hair. Either way, for most people, receiving anything in the mail from a serial criminal would be abnormal. But not for Amanda and Rex Taylor's family. Rex's behavior and his willingness to communicate and receive experiences from known serial criminals and Amanda's obsession with crime has been confirmed by some horrifying revelations of past social media posts under her account. In several posts, Amanda glorifies a mass of criminals and their brutal attacks, including the mastermind behind the largest terrorist attack in American history, Timothy McVeigh, and 2 young men, Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris, who staged a mass crime at Collin High School. She aspired to become one of those ruthless criminals she idolized so much, and of course decided to start her career as a criminal with a vengeance. After a while, Amanda accused Rex's father, Charlie Taylor, of being responsible for her husband's death, claiming that he had not helped Rex get rid of his addiction to pills, but had instead accustomed his son to illegal substances. And the cynicism and cold-bloodedness with which she took revenge on her father-in-law, Charlie Taylor, will send shivers down your spine. To commit her first major murder, she needed an assistant who would unconditionally agree with her actions. She was afraid she wouldn't be able to do it all by herself the first time, and she needed a willing accomplice to back her up if she got scared. And one Amanda already had, of course. It was the man in love with her, Sean Ball. The day she would take control of him was only a matter of time. Sean soon became the willing accomplice Amanda was looking for. However, he had no idea what he was getting himself into. So Sean and Amanda devised their sinister plan with military precision and put it into action. On a spring April afternoon in 2015, Amanda and Sean went to Charles Taylor's dilapidated home in nearby Ironton, Virginia, At exactly 3:27 in the afternoon, the number that marks Rex and Amanda's birth dates, Charles had to give her money to fill an Easter basket for her beloved grandchildren. They sat and talked sweetly for about 30 minutes. Then Amanda plopped down on the couch next to Charles, and it was as if a switch had been flicked in her head. Amanda's behavior changed dramatically. She violently began stabbing Charles with a knife, at which time Sean hit Charles in the head with a tire iron. Then, after stunning Charles, Amanda again deeply stabbed the knife into his chest. At this point, it was like she couldn't see anything around her from rage, and Charles just looked at her and asked, "What are you doing?" As she stabbed him, he reached out and grabbed her hair, but Amanda continued to stab him, and he continued to scream. Amanda Taylor stabbed her father-in-law Charles Taylor 31 times with a sharp bayonet knife. Every time she looked into his eyes, it was important to her that he knew she was the one who was killing him, and she wanted to feel his last breath. She wanted death for Charles to be a personal revenge. She stopped as her rage began to subside, and the entire room was splattered with blood. But Amanda didn't stop there. She did something even more outrageous by taking a picture of herself next to the body and posting the picture on her social media accounts. Later that day, Amanda's mother received a disturbing phone call from an unknown number. With Amanda's voice on the other end of the line, she confessed through tears how much she loved her mom and how precious everything she had done for her, and through her tears, she shared that she had done what she had to do, and it was something very bad. Her mom sensed the situation, and it was clear to her that something terrible had happened. She begged her daughter to come home to Christiansburg, but Amanda refused the idea and stated that she and Sean were on their way to Pittsburgh. It was no secret that Amanda was on a downward spiral, and it all started with a traumatic event that occurred almost 8 months ago when her husband, Rex Taylor, who had struggled with depression and illicit substance abuse for several years, hanged himself. Authorities were subsequently shocked when they checked Amanda's social media profile. She was clearly very proud of the crime she had committed. Hoping for a quick resolution, the police issued a warrant for her arrest. However, by then, Amanda and Sean had already escaped. Amanda and Sean took a rather scenic route to escape, as if they were not on the run, but planning a wonderful vacation. They took the Blue Ridge Parkway from Virginia to North Carolina. Judging from the crime scene photos, which show the sheer brutality of the crime, the officers had great fears that the perpetrators would continue to kill. And they were right, for Amanda didn't stop there. However, Amanda was not going to go unpunished for her crimes. After carrying out her intended crimes, she planned to eventually punish herself as well. Nor did she seek to keep her deed a secret. Shortly after she went on the road with Sean Ball, she began publishing posts on social media, taking responsibility for the murder and explaining that she did it for her husband. But Amanda and Sean weren't just on the run, they were stalking their next victim. Having committed her first crime, which Amanda thought was perfect, she couldn't stop. She needed to keep killing. At a gas station, they withdrew cash, filled up the car, and proceeded to Tennessee. Sean tried to talk Amanda into stopping and just going on the run, hiding, laying low. But Amanda, having tasted blood, was determined to fulfill her desire to commit another crime, and she would come very close. They stocked up on ammunition at a sporting goods store, then stopped at a Fleabag motel in Tennessee. After spending the night in a roadside motel, they left the next day to fulfill Amanda's bloody wish. Along the way, Amanda notices 2 young girls at a rest stop on Blue Ridge Boulevard who could be her next victims. She told Sean that she was going to bring these girls in so he could shoot them. They needed money, and he agreed, so Amanda went out to lead them to the car. But when she brought them in, Sean refused to shoot them. Amanda was furious. She got back in the car and drove away. Unable to calm down, she stopped the car in the driveway and pounced on her accomplice. Sean was now in her sights. Amanda pulled a revolver out of the glove compartment, got out of the car, and walked to the passenger side where Sean sat with his eyes closed in terror. She was so beyond furious, but she spotted a random jogger right in front of her and quickly pointed the gun at him and pulled the trigger. As luck would have it, Amanda missed, and the sound of the gunshot made Sean open his eyes and come to his senses. He saw that the muzzle of the revolver was pointed at him. Amanda said that before she killed him, she wanted him to know that she was only using it for the gun and the car. She then pulled the trigger, shooting Sean right in the face. Amanda took a picture of Sean's bloody face to post on social media and drove off, leaving him bleeding on the side of the road from the gunshot wound. Now, she was on the run alone. They had guns, firearms, they had stolen them from a relative's house, and they had already bought ammunition and magazines for the same weapon, said Police Captain New. They both seemed to be in agreement on what was going to happen, and it was going to start with the murder of Charles Taylor. Police were on the trail, and Amanda continued to post notes. In her next social media post, she revealed that she took Sean's life. While at a traffic stop in a field, Amanda took a picture of a silver revolver in her lap and posted it to Instagram with a caption. The post was more like a suicide note. "Okay, it's about that time. I'm going to find my husband in hell and finally find peace. I love you, Mom, and my beautiful children, and I know you will give them the life I could never give them. I will finally be free." The cops were actively monitoring Amanda's account in hopes of tracking her down, and they did. Surveillance video from gas stations along the route of the white SUV the perpetrators fled in also helped police get on the trail. Cell tower signals were able to locate Amanda on a North Carolina state highway. Patrol officers spotted the white SUV heading east on I-40 near Asheville when she tried to stop. No matter how much she ran, she didn't give up without a fight. Law enforcement prepared, they knew she was armed and extremely dangerous. This reality was further reinforced by another sobering social media post that surfaced later that day that said, "Okay, the time is about to come when I find my husband in hell and finally become one with him." In her photo, Amanda looks smug, like she's proud of what she's done. After a 2-mile stretch of spikes that were strategically placed in Amanda's path, eventually all the destruction and chaos was over. Amanda was taken into custody around 8 o'clock the next morning. Police officers pulled Amanda out of the car and handcuffed her. Sean was found dying on the side of the road by paramedics. In the interrogation room, Amanda acted as if she didn't care about what was happening. She was sipping a soft drink and playing with her hair before Captain Robert New and another detective walked in. When questioned, Amanda waived her right to remain silent and confessed to everything. She really did look like she felt at home. After talking to the investigators, Amanda learned that Sean wasn't dead. The bullet had gone right through his jaw, causing him to pass out from the pain, but otherwise leaving no marks on him. Then, in a blood-chilling revelation, Amanda announced that she wanted to go to the death chamber. "Do you have a choice? I would prefer just the death penalty," Amanda says in the interrogation tape. "I kill people. I deserve to die. It would be better if I just go. It would be better for my children if I could just get the death penalty and go." Then, in a stunning turn of events, Amanda found herself recanting her words and pleading not guilty in front of the court. But at the trial, Amanda did recount her crime in great detail and insisted that she had done the right thing in taking the life of old Charles, who had taken Rex from her. She said that at first she'd been very angry with Rex for doing that to her, but then she'd been more angry with his father. Amanda admitted that she wanted Charles to feel the same pain that she had felt. Her argument was that she had killed Charles because she blamed him for the death of her husband Rex, whom Charles had allegedly given illegal substances to, according to Amanda. And the moment Charles started talking about Rex again, Amanda looked at him and started stabbing him, and it became the most alive thing she had felt since Rex had died. She admitted that she was very happy in those moments when the knife entered her father-in-law. Finally, Amanda vented all of her accumulated hatred and anger. She did it to get attention, and by not pleading guilty, she got the opportunity to talk about the case, said Captain Robert New. Amanda's explanation is disgusting. After all, she compares the feeling of the crime to a happy memory. At the November 2015 trial, the jury heard how Amanda stabbed Charles 31 times, and that she aimed for his face and chest. It took the jury just 30 minutes to find Amanda Taylor guilty of first-degree murder. She was sentenced to life in prison. The judge called her the epitome of evil. As part of the plea bargain, Sean Ball agreed to a suspended 60-year sentence after 41 years in prison. Sean admitted that he is not worthy of sympathy and is completely remorseful for what he did. But there is a guilt that he has to live with every day and wonder what caused this to happen in his life. Sean Ball was jailed for 41 years after admitting to second-degree murder as part of a plea bargain. The 60-year prison sentence was suspended, except that Ball had to serve 41 years and 1 month. Amanda recently appealed her conviction and lost. She said she plans to appeal her conviction to the Supreme Court if she has to. Obviously, Amanda didn't become a serial offender, but she gained notoriety as a killer selfie taker. Amanda Taylor made a heartbreaking confession during a phone interview for a popular show from prison. When asked about why she took selfies with her body, she said, "I was just really excited and thought I wanted to take a picture so I could post it and show everyone. It made me really happy finally." She said she has absolutely no remorse for what she did to Charles Taylor because she did exactly what she wanted to do. Amazingly, during this time, she gave a local reporter a phone interview in which she compared the thrill of being stabbed to riding a roller coaster. She said, "It was like my first roller coaster ride because of all the nerves and the feeling of freedom. That's how I felt. It wasn't what I had in mind at all. It's not what you see in the movies. It's a real animal sensation." Amanda Taylor had committed a terrible crime and wanted more. People who knew Amanda Taylor described her as a very dark and sinister woman who was obsessed with death, crime, and serial offenders from a young age. Her social media pages were filled with images of bizarre death scenes. If any woman has ever gone insane, it's Amanda Taylor, and it's so often the case that it wasn't supposed to happen. The people who loved her tried their best to stop her madness, and the people she turned to for help turned a blind eye. Now Amanda is being punished for all the destruction she was so encouraged by. This is how the career of Amanda Taylor, who dreamed of becoming a famous serial criminal, ended. Each of us goes through different phases in life, going through our own traumas and experiences. And when we look at bad heroes, learn about their past, we unwittingly try it on ourselves. Admit it. Have you ever dreamed of killing the neighbor who listens to music loudly at night or pisses you off because he parks in your spot? But reconsider the story, and better just shout by the lake or in the woods. They say it calms and returns moral balance. State of affairs, but sometimes it is difficult to accept the truth, and a person creates a lie, which sincerely begins to believe and convince others. 11 young men and 1 girl met in a hotel room to celebrate the new year. Strange collaboration, you will think, and you will be right. But wait. There is one fact that will completely change your opinion. The men at this party are all members of a sexual minority, which means that 12 friends just met to have fun and celebrate the year 2021. And indeed, they celebrated the new year very cheerfully, so much so that on January 1st, the company had to take the only girl to the hospital, where doctors declared her death. But who was she? How did she die, and was anyone charged in connection with her death? But that's all in order. Next, let's break down the past party almost minute by minute. See what happened on the fateful night, and you'll definitely understand why we started this story with the notion of truth. So on December 31st, 2020, in Manila, the capital of the Philippines, at the 4-star City Garden Grand Hotel, John Paul de Lucerne checked in at 11 a.m. Christine de Serra checked in later, and during the day, 9 other guys checked into room 2207 and room 2209, which were on the same floor. Hotel manager John Paul Kalili joined the merry company just after midnight. New Year's Eve night was all about fun, dancing, and alcohol, lots of alcohol. Rommel Galita woke up around 10 a.m. and noticed Christine sleeping in the bathtub. He covered her with a blanket and went back to sleep. When he woke up several hours later, he found her unconscious and beginning to turn blue. Christine was taken to the hospital by 3 friends and hotel staff, but upon arrival at the emergency room, doctors only pronounced her dead. The 11 guys with the only girl spent the entire night in the hotel room, and she was dead by morning. News headlines about the crime shocked the public. Everyone imagined the story the same way, because it was obvious what a group of young guys and one girl could do all night. But what really happened that New Year's Eve night, and from what Christine Dassera died, was to be solved by the investigation. Christine Angelica Dassera was born on April 13, 1997, into the well-to-do family of John Nestor Dassera and Sharon Rose Faba Dassera, and grew up in Barangay San Isidro, General Santos City. She grew up an outgoing, intelligent, and independent girl. Kristen was a loving sister to her three siblings, Monica, Chloe, and JJ. After graduating from high school, she moved to the larger and more promising city of Davao, on the shores of the bay of the same name. There she enrolled in university. Christine studied diligently, danced, modeled, and was active on social media. Christine was also the epitome of beauty and intelligence. In 2017, she graduated with honors from the University of the Philippines, Mindanao, in Davao City, where she earned a Bachelor of Arts in Communication Arts with a major in Media Arts. The girl has been actively involved in modeling and theatrical performances. On August 5, 2017, she competed against 8 other contenders for the title of Miss Silva Davao 2017 at the New City Commercial Corporation Mall in Davao City. She came in second place. In June 2018, she participated in the annual fashion show. From September 2017 to January 2019, she worked as a marketing consultant for Gaisano Malls in different parts of Mindanao, including Davao City, General Santos City, Tagum, Toril, and Digos. Christine's life has been colorful and fulfilling. In February 2019, her life's dream came true. She moved to Manila to start working as a flight attendant for PAL Express, a subsidiary of Philippine Airlines. Christine Dassera's last flight as a flight attendant was on December 28, 2020. Christine's death was immediately publicized, due to which numerous discussions and theories were formed in the community. Initially, the police suspected that Kristen was most likely abused and killed by a group of guys she was partying with on New Year's Eve. Even without autopsy results and a toxicology report, Makati City Police filed preliminary charges of assault and murder against 11 men. The Philippine National Police declared the case closed. Arrests were made with charges and identification of suspects. 3 of the party participants were detained after surrendering to authorities on their own. But the main answer to what really caused Christine's death was the forensic medical report. The autopsy of Christine's body was conducted in Pasay City at the Rizal Funeral Home under the direction of Forensic Medical Officer Police Major Michael Nick Sartiento. On January 3, 2021, the examination of Christine Dassera's body was completed, and a forensic report was issued which found that death was due to natural causes due to a ruptured aortic aneurysm. However, it also mentioned bruises on the girl's right arm, right thigh, knees, ankles, and right foot, as well as a linear abrasion on her right thigh. Deeply healed lacerations and abrasions were also reported during the genital exam. The National Capital Region Police Department announced that a special investigation team had been set up to look into the case, but Christine's family was unwilling to accept the fact that a young, vibrant girl could die a natural death prematurely. At a press conference on January 5, 2021, Christine Dassera's family stated that they had seen the autopsy report that said she died of an aneurysm. However, they stated that the autopsy performed was incomplete and requested a second autopsy. The parents of the deceased have been trying to understand how Christine's aorta was ruptured. After all, the police and the Dassera family lawyer believed that the aneurysm was the result of assault or abuse, which means it was not a natural death, and the perpetrators should be punished. The prosecutor's office identified all of the 11 men who were with Christine throughout the night. Some of them were her co-workers. Other young men were friends of her friends whom Christine was meeting for the first time. It turned out that Christine was the initiator of this party. She had booked the hotel room herself a few days in advance and coordinated this party with her friends. Her mom, Sharon, was aware of her daughter's friendship with men and never opposed it. Since childhood, Kristen had found it easier to socialize and make friends with the male gender, so it was considered normal in their family. In addition, she and her friends usually did not go home for vacations, so it became a tradition for them to meet each other every year. Kristen was able to call her family just after midnight to inform them of the ongoing celebration at the Makati Hotel and to wish her family a happy new year. During the video call, the family could see Kristen's friends and the surrounding festive environment. However, there has been new speculation about the abuse allegation. So in the case, the main evidence of the incident became the frames of the video from the hotel lobby, the study of which helped the police almost minute by minute to reconstruct the picture of what happened. It should be noted that the party was to be held in room 2209. It was this room and booked Christine Dacra. The main events begin to unfold in the late afternoon. At 11:21 p.m., Christine leaves room 2209 and goes to room 2207. At 11:38 p.m., the company returns to their room. Christine goes last. She is holding her shoes and a glass. At 2:50 a.m., Christine, holding the hand of a new acquaintance, Valentine, goes to room 2207. While they are at a neighbor's house, a hotel employee brings an extra mattress to room 2209. At 2:52 a.m., Valentine accompanies Christine to her room. Valentine's gait shows that the girl is already quite drunk. Her gait is too relaxed, and she is holding a bottle in her hand. The friends stop at the door, and Christine suddenly kisses Valentine, but the man quickly pulls away, after which the couple goes inside. At 3:15 a.m., Christine hurriedly leaves her room and goes to her neighbor's room, and 6 minutes later, one of the guys leaves there. He heads to room 2209, presumably to call his friends. At 3:22 a.m., Christine DeSera can be seen chatting with another man in the next room on the right side of the hallway, while two other men walk past them. She looked upset. Suddenly, Christine hugs one of her friends, and then they disappear from the view of the cameras altogether. At 4:13 a.m., John de Lucerne can be seen carrying Christine back to the first room. At 4:22 a.m., the camera again captures Christine at the door of room 2207. It's unclear what brought her there again. She practically falls off her feet, and a guy who looks like John de Lucerne picks her up by the waist and carries her to room 2209. Christine looks pretty drunk. At 5:05 a.m., the camera captures Christine laughing as she runs away from a guy who looks like Louis de Lima. Afterward, they're standing outside room 2207. Christine looks normal, and with him she enters room 2209. At 6:23 a.m., Christine makes her last appearance on camera alive. For the last time, Valentine carries her in his arms from room 2207. The girl is conscious. It was obviously an eventful night, but the most important truth still remains behind the scenes. The party continued until dawn. Around 12 noon, when Christine was found unconscious in the bathtub, her friends carried her to the floor and repeatedly attempted cardiopulmonary resuscitation. After unsuccessful attempts, they called for help at the front desk. A few minutes later, the hotel manager and the head of security arrived in the room. They used a wheelchair to lower Christine to the first floor of the hotel. Rommel Galido accompanied Christine to the hospital. The doctors, unfortunately, only stated the girl's death. Rommel called Christine's mom and broke the bad news. It can be assumed that what is happening really looks like a fun party, and definitely to be in one room such a large company was cramped, so young people chaotically moved all night from room to room. But the investigators had suspicions about the use of illegal substances to enhance the effect of alcohol. When questioned, some of the detainees claimed that there were no illegal substances during the party, but only whiskey and tequila. It is worth noting that illegal drugs were initially the centerpiece of the investigation, as the testimony of one of the detainees reported that Christine had doubts about the contents of the drinks and suggested that someone may have spiked it with an unknown substance. It transpired that guests were asked to bring their own food and drinks. Because of this, there was speculation that Christine Dacera's drink was poisoned and could have triggered the aneurysm that eventually led to her death. but the autopsy report stated that no alcohol or illegal drugs taken the night before her death would cause this type of aortic dilatation or defect. Substance information was later unconfirmed, as no illegal substances or traces of them were found in the room or in the suspect's personal belongings. An examination and search of the two rooms, as well as the neighboring room 2009, looking for potential evidence, did not yield the desired results that at least indirectly proved the violent death of Christine de Serna. Under questioning, Mark Rosales and John de la Serna publicly admitted their unconventional orientation and stated that Christine was their best friend and they would never hurt her. John also revealed that they had to bring Christine back from room 2207 because she was already vomiting early in the morning. Rommel Galido said that around 10 a.m. he found Christine in the bathtub of their room and thought she was asleep, so he just covered her with a blanket. However, around noon, after he woke up and went back to wake her up, he realized the girl was blue and not breathing. He rushed to his friends for help. The hotel advised that she be rushed to Makati Medical Center, where she was pronounced dead on arrival, reportedly due to a ruptured aortic aneurysm. The hospital reported the death to the Makati City Police. Meanwhile, other men from a neighboring hotel room had left by then. On January 4th, the Philippine National Police sent a separate statement to the media about the Christine de Serna incident, saying that the case is almost solved despite some missing details and conflicting reports on the matter. Police Chief Debold Sinas said they already have 3 suspects and they have been apprehended. Other suspects were being sought, but as early as January 6th, the Makati City Prosecutor's Office ordered the release of the 3 men who were in custody due to lack of evidence. Prosecutors insisted that the evidence presented was insufficient to establish that Christine was abused. They also said that even if Christine de Serna was abused, the police have yet to prove that this is what caused her death. Moreover, the party was a gathering of men of non-traditional orientation, where they were all flirting with each other, and Christine was an extra woman. Rommel Galido, as well as most of those present at the party, were stewards and co-workers of Christine de Serna at PL Airlines, indicating that she was well acquainted with these men and their orientation. On January 13, 2021, the Makati City Prosecutor's Office launched a preliminary investigation and based on an official autopsy that confirmed that the 23-year-old died from a ruptured aortic aneurysm. The prosecutor's office also called on the police to release the results of the victim's DNA analysis, toxicology report, and histopathic study. However, Christine's mother, Sharon de Serna, criticized the report that her daughter was not abused. She appeared on a news show where she claimed that her daughter was abused by a group of guys. If you see Christine's body, if you're a mother, you'll probably feel the pain that Christine suffered because of them. But my daughter can't talk anymore because she's dead. The woman spoke out on the TV program. Sharon cited the lacerations and bruises on her daughter's body, which were not recorded in the autopsy, as evidence that the report was inaccurate. Christine's family later said they wanted another autopsy to challenge authorities' initial findings that she died a natural death. The basis was injuries and bruising that were not documented in the first report. Family spokesperson Brick Reyes said that the injuries on the victim's legs and arms, as well as her remains, would provide sufficient evidence that Christine was abused. Rick Reyes also said that they believed the young woman was drugged and abused before she died. Christine was already intoxicated and complained that something seemed to have been spiked in her drink during the New Year's Eve celebration. Christine's parents said they have filed a complaint demanding the immediate dismissal of Michael Nick Sarmiento for gross negligence and gross incompetence in preparing Christine's forensic report and death certificate. Dr. Marisi Ramos, a friend of Dasser's family, told reporters that the body was subjected to a second autopsy. He also emphasized that the biological fluids recovered from the second autopsy had been forwarded to the Death Investigation Unit, which will provide more details after a final evaluation and consolidation of all the findings of its forensic team. The pathology autopsy results from the Southern Police District Crime Lab Division's forensic report, which was eventually shared on social media, showed that the cause of death was consistent with what was previously reported as a ruptured aortic aneurysm. The official autopsy revealed that Christina was not abused on the night of her death. The actual cause of Dasara's death lies in the aorta. The constant increase in blood pressure in the aorta caused the defect to weaken, and eventually the aorta ruptured, the Philippine National Police Crime Lab report said. At the time the aorta rupture occurred, there was blood loss, so Christine felt various symptoms such as weakness, nausea, and sweating. The blood loss due to the aortic rupture killed her within a few hours, the report said. This means that the girl had a ruptured aortic aneurysm, which enlarged the lower part of the main vessel, aorta, that supplies blood to the entire body. This vessel runs from a person's heart through the chest and abdomen. Since the aorta is the largest vessel in the body, if it ruptures, a person can lose a huge amount of blood and potentially be fatal, as in this case. In addition, it was noted that Christine's aneurysm did not occur recently. It started a long time ago. The report states that dilatation is a chronic condition and was present long before her death. Had she not died that fateful night, she would still have died in any scenario that would cause her blood pressure to rise enough to rupture the aneurysm. The autopsy also revealed that Dasara's heart was enlarged compared to a healthy heart, further confirming Christina Dasara's undiagnosed hypertension. For the most part, it can be confirmed that the girl's death was due to natural causes. But the widespread misinformation brought shame and persecution to those 11 young guys who were at the party and sincerely tried to give Christine first aid, but they were labeled as criminals. All 11 guys who were charged preliminarily have since been released from custody. The Makati City Prosecutor's Office tried to rectify the situation and said that at the time of the publicity, the evidence presented was not enough to establish that Christine Dasara was abused, and it was impossible to obtain proper evidence at that time. Therefore, they had to build a version based on signs of deterioration of the victim's body. In addition, 2 other suspects said that the police forced them to give false testimony that there were illegal drugs at the New Year's Eve party. Another participant in the story explained his kiss with Christine, which was captured by surveillance cameras on the eve of her death. According to the man, it was Christine herself who initiated it. He, however, tried to push her away. Law enforcement officials were criticized for not conducting a thorough toxicological examination when the flight attendant's body was found. The charges against the men were later dropped due to lack of evidence. The death of Christine Dasara attracted widespread media attention as a result of suspicious circumstances that seemed to contradict the findings of the Philippine National Police. Christine's case continued to receive a lot of publicity online as further developments came from her family, who in no way could accept the truth and believe in the natural death of their daughter. The girl's mother, Sharon, appealed to President Rodrigo Duterte for help in seeking justice for her daughter. I am an ordinary person. You also have a daughter. I want to speak out openly because I don't want anyone to be victimized by the kind of cruelty and barbarism like my Christine. Christine Dasara was buried at Forest Lake Memorial Park in her hometown of General Santos more than a week after her death. A wave of condolences, reposts, and farewells traveled across the social stanzas of Kristen's friends and co-workers. Ultimately, the unconventional case of Christine Dasara serves as a prime example of when the media spreads misinformation and how it can affect the public as well as impact those involved. As we come to the end, the story wants to return to the truth, which sooner or later, but in any form, is bound to take its place of honor. After all, the truth is one. But Christine's family is still convinced that the girl was killed by these people and that there is something secret in this story. Personally, I do not understand and found no answers to the question about bruises and wounds on Christine's body. Why was it hushed up? It seems that despite the presence of wounds and bruises on Christine's body, the cause of her death was not them, but the rupture of the aorta due to heart disease, so they did not focus on the wounds on her body. In my opinion, There are a lot of oddities and inconsistencies in this case, but you guys are the judge. I would like to wish Christine's family to accept the irreparable loss, because young guys, whether they are guilty or not, will end up remembering the same sad story every New Year's Eve and making excuses for the rest of their lives. Why do people commit crimes? Human nature is complex and multifaceted, and every action has its reason. This time, we will not discuss people with mental health issues and their tendencies towards violence. We will also exclude military personnel, individuals whose job is directly connected with eliminating enemies. It seems that the primary motives for life-threatening acts are material gain, revenge, exceeding the limits of necessary defense, and accidental incidents. Most crimes occurred domestically during conflicts and disputes when it seemed like everything was fine. However, these acts of violence are not a cause, but a consequence of human spirit degradation, leaving a permanent mark. On the morning of January 12, 2019, it was reported that 65-year-old Michael Redlick had passed away. Known in his circles, the former NBA executive with the Memphis Grizzlies and a beloved professor at the University of Central Florida died from a heart attack initially. However, upon the arrival of emergency services, it became clear that Mr. Redlick died from a stab wound to the chest. Various theories were considered, including self-inflicted harm. Later, forensic experts determined that the incident was a criminal act of taking a life. Sometime later, the perpetrator was identified. The person who helped Michael meet his end was his beloved wife. By June 2022, she stood trial. Yet this story is not straightforward. She did not admit guilt for the intentional crime and frequently changed her testimony. The legal battle between the prosecution and defense was long and heated. Ultimately, the court's verdict was unexpected for everyone. What really happened in the Winter Park suburb of Florida, USA? Who was the true victim, and could the tragedy have been prevented? Let's explore together. Sitting in the defendant's chair is 46-year-old Danielle Redlick. The accused is of short stature and slim build. Her chestnut hair has visibly grayed, either because she had no opportunity to visit a hairdresser, having spent about 3 years in custody, or perhaps the gray is a testament to her true turmoil and stress. Until 2019, she was just an ordinary working American woman, a mother of 2 wonderful children. A specialist in multimedia communications, she was not particularly well known. However, after the crime against her husband, her name was frequently highlighted in the media. This is what happens when the dirty laundry of seemingly respectable spouses is aired publicly. Danielle was born in 1976 in Florida. After some time, her family moved to Cleveland, Ohio. Her childhood was typical in many ways. She grew up kind and well-mannered with a creative nature. Danielle was the eldest child in her family. As she matured, her appreciation for beauty intensified. She enrolled at Valencia College, where she earned an Associate of Arts degree. Later, she was admitted to the psychology department at Baldwin Wallace University. In 1996, Danielle's mother, Caitlin Aquino, remarried. However, the marriage was short-lived, lasting only 2 years, after which Caitlin passed away from cancer. It turns out that she had been battling breast cancer for a long time. Thanks to her husband's comprehensive insurance, she received high-quality medical care, which was the primary reason for legally formalizing their marriage. Unfortunately, the treatment ultimately did not yield the desired result. After his wife's death, the man became not only a widower, but also a true father to her children. Since it was difficult for him to raise them alone, he asked for help from Caitlin, the eldest daughter. At that time, 22-year-old Danielle was living independently, but responded to the request. Thus, after Caitlin's death, Danielle, her brother and sister, and their stepfather, Michael Redlick, all ended up under one roof. Yes, you heard right. The very same Michael, who later became Danielle's husband and was perpetrated on a winter evening in 2019. At first, their relationship was built on friendship. Danielle took care of the younger kids and worked part-time at a bar at night. Michael was building his career in professional sports, involved in player recruitment. He grew very attached to the children who became like his own. He also felt comfortable with Danielle. Over time, she saw him as a dependable support. Despite the 20-year age difference, their interaction was easy and natural. Gradually, the man and woman grew closer. Neither age nor status bothered them. However, Danielle initially didn't want to make their relationship public to her family and kept it hidden for a while. With his new partner, Michael felt younger and more energetic, and she felt loved and protected. Since he had good connections, he easily found her a new job in an advertising agency. Besides, he had a high income and devoted all his free time to the family. Overall, things were going well for both of them. After some time, Mr. Redlick received a tempting job offer. He was invited to become the vice president of corporate sales for the Memphis Grizzlies basketball club. However, the new job required moving to another state. Without hesitation, he asked Danielle to come with him. But she hesitated. Danielle didn't want to change her familiar lifestyle, and she was still studying, so she declined. Yet their relationship continued long distance, and the lovers often saw each other. One day, he showed her the house he had bought for them, impressing her. The cottage was located in a picturesque area by the Mississippi River. The neighborhood was quiet and cozy. Ultimately, Danielle decided to move and live together. To ensure she had no doubts, he found her an interesting job in the radio industry. Later, Danielle recalled that at first, everything was perfect. It was only Michael's job that later brought changes. Many years later, during the trial against Danielle, her 15-year-old daughter Jaden testified. She spoke of how Michael was an excellent father who did a lot for his family. Along with her 8-year-old brother Sawyer, they attended one of the best schools, hoping to pursue careers in sports thanks to their dad's encouragement and support in enrolling them in sports programs. Jaden was close to her father, which she couldn't say about her mother, whom she saw as hysterical, manipulative, and toxic at times. The young lady believed that Danielle instigated all the conflicts at home while Michael tried to keep the family and peace intact. But was it really as the elder daughter perceived? And what caused discord in what seemed like a happy and united family? Mr. Redlick's new position came with increased responsibility and stress, and he had a difficult relationship with the management. This took a toll on him. He became very stressed and tired. Eventually, to relax and unwind, Michael turned to alcoholic beverages. Over time, this became a daily occurrence. He would often stay out late, returning home intoxicated and angry. The tension in the house was palpable. Danielle tried to support her husband, understanding his condition. After talking to her, it seemed he would calm down and promise to stop. But his promises were short-lived. One time, Michael missed a dinner they had planned together, which was not the first occurrence. But this time, they had specifically arranged to spend the evening together. Danielle was very upset and stated that if he couldn't make time for her, he should have warned her so she could make other plans. Heading towards the door, she made an ill-timed joke, which struck a nerve with Michael. He stood in the doorway and hit her across the face. The slap was so forceful that she staggered back. She then noticed that her clothes and the floor were splattered with blood. In shock, she recoiled from her husband, who began crying and apologizing. Clearly distressed, Michael tried to make amends immediately. He took his wife to a familiar sports doctor and explained what had happened. The doctor examined the unfortunate victim and provided first aid, then recommended seeing a dentist and a plastic surgeon, as the injuries were quite severe. Danielle even had a front tooth chipped. The next day, Michael arranged a memorable dinner, was very attentive and caring. Undoubtedly, his wife forgave him and did not report the incident anywhere. There was a fairly strict domestic violence law in the state, so Mrs. Redlick felt sympathy for her husband and decided not to cause him any further trouble. In fact, this was not the first warning sign. Danielle had already encountered similar behavior before. The incident happened while they were living together in Cleveland. At a concert, Danielle chatted with an ex-boyfriend, which made Michael jealous. On their way home, he dropped a few sarcastic comments about it. Danielle responded in kind. Unexpectedly, he hit her, then immediately apologized, noting that he did it because she hurt his feelings. Danielle forgave her partner, blaming herself as well. Over time, the incident was forgotten. After all, things happen in relationships. In 2003, the Redlicks welcomed their first child, a daughter named Jaden. A year later, the couple decided to legalize their relationship. It was a bright period in their lives. Everything was going well. However, Michael still faced challenges at work. The management changed, and he couldn't get the promotion he had hoped for. 7 years later, the family grew with the addition of a son named Sawyer. The parents were fully engaged in raising their children. If it weren't for Michael's job. The tension escalated, and he began drinking again. This led to more frequent conflicts. During one argument, he grabbed Danielle by the throat and pinned her against the wall, which terrified her. This time, his wife couldn't tolerate the rough behavior. She packed up, took the children, and moved in with her relatives. It's worth noting, they did not approve of the marriage initially, but eventually came to terms with it. Michael repeatedly visited her, apologizing and asking her to come back home. After some time, their relationship was restored. The following years were unstable. The Redlicks moved several times. The family patriarch was offered a job in California, where they lived for about 5 years. This period could hardly be called successful. The man again struggled with his issues and continued to indulge in drinking. There came a time when both spouses were unemployed and lived off their savings. In 2014, another move was on the horizon, this time to Indiana. However, the prospects were promising. To find a new home and settle matters, the man went ahead first. Danielle stayed in California with the children. They needed time to sell their old property and belongings. The constant moving had also become exhausting. It was difficult for the children to adapt to the rapidly changing environments. The whole process took a year. During this time, the family's financial situation improved. However, the marital relationship underwent changes. The distance and infrequent meetings affected them. Danielle and Michael grew distant and barely communicated. When the spouses finally reunited, they faced new issues. At one point, Danielle began to suspect her husband of infidelity. He became unusually cold and distant, and the former passion had faded. However, Michael found the strength to confess that his age and health were to blame. He had been embarrassed to mention this earlier, fearing he would lose his younger wife, but Danielle was grateful for his honesty and supported him as before. After trying numerous medications, the couple decided to undergo a course of hormone injections. Testosterone injections helped Michael rejuvenate physically and mentally. He seemed to become younger, regaining his former energy and vigor. With this came an increase in his aggressiveness. One evening, while watching a movie together, Michael fell asleep. Danielle went upstairs to rest. The next morning, he entered the bathroom while she was brushing her teeth and struck her on the head. He justified his action by saying she had not woken him up the evening before. She responded that she was tired of this and was leaving. This only angered him further, and he began to choke her. Poor Danielle could not defend herself and began to lose consciousness. At one moment, she felt like she was dying. After some time, Mrs. Redlick opened her eyes and saw her husband standing over her, scared and confused, begging for forgiveness. All Danielle could do was silently crawl away. After this incident, they continued to live in the same house and raise their children together. But from that time, their relationship fundamentally changed. Apparently, a point of no return had been reached. The man began to drink more frequently, and conflicts in the home increased, even over trivial matters. The number of times Michael's discontent escalated into physical aggression increased. However, the woman did not leave him. Despite her dissatisfaction with the situation and resentment towards her husband, she continued to love him deeply. The ongoing situation also affected Danielle. She became nervous and irritable, withdrew into herself. To distract herself, she took up photography. Nevertheless, their family still appeared respectable, as most of their disagreements did not extend beyond the home. By the end of 2014, the Redlicks finally settled in Florida. This time, Michael decided to change his career path, tired of the constant stress. He took a position as Director of External Affairs and Partnership Programs at the University of Central Florida and began teaching. Although his income was less than what he made in the NBA, the job brought him enjoyment and stability. Initially, the family rented a home, but after a year, they purchased their own property in the quaint area of Winter Park. Their family home was impressive. The house was designed in a Mediterranean style and had a huge square footage. Danielle favored the attic floor, which served as her retreat. She often spent nights there, especially when Michael had bouts of anger. Testosterone injections rejuvenated him and restored their intimate life, but even during intimate moments, he could be harsh. Their relationship remained tense and unstable. Against this backdrop, Danielle developed an alcohol dependency. While Michael worked and supported the family, Danielle managed the household and children, increasingly withdrawing into herself. The numerous disputes eventually led to the couple separating in 2016. Despite this, Michael continued to see the children and support them financially, paying the bills. By this time, Danielle had found a job at a school. New acquaintances helped her out of her depression, and her responsibilities restored her independence. However, she still continued to see Michael. He could come and go as he pleased. During one of these days, another argument ensued, after which Danielle ended up in the hospital with a concussion. She kept silent again and did not tell the truth about what happened, fearing it would cause problems for her husband. But this time, Michael took her silence for granted. During questioning, Danielle confessed that in early October 2016, something extraordinary happened. Her husband had tried to run her over with his car. She was saved only because she managed to jump into the bushes. After this, Danielle went to the police department. However, when detectives began to inquire in detail about the incident, she changed her mind and left. The reason was the same as always. Later, the couple reconciled and moved back in together. However, this turned out to be a fateful decision for both of them. At around 9 a.m. on January 12, 2019, a 911 call was made. On the other end of the line, a woman introduced herself as Danielle Redlick and reported that her husband Michael had died from a heart attack. When the rescue service arrived at the scene and entered the house, they immediately noticed a strong smell of cleaning agent. At the entrance to the living room, the team encountered a bucket filled with pink-colored water. Beyond this, a scene from a thriller unfolded. A man lay on the floor in a pool of blood, lifeless. It was clear that the unfortunate man had not died from a heart attack as his wife had claimed, but from a penetrating knife wound. The woman who made the call was also found with cuts on her wrists. Paramedics provided first aid before taking her to the hospital. Following them, the police began their investigation. When law enforcement examined the scene, they were certain that Michael Redlick's life had been taken. It was unlikely that he could have inflicted such a fatal injury on himself. Later, forensic analysis confirmed that the blood traces in the home belonged to the deceased. The pink liquid in the bucket at the entrance was nothing but diluted blood. Someone, possibly the homeowner herself, had tried to erase a trail leading from the bedroom to the living room, indicating that the body had been dragged. Despite the cleaning efforts, not all evidence was destroyed. Blood spatter was found in the corners of the room and on the walls. Moreover, a large knife lay at the entrance to the kitchen, and 3 smaller knives were found in the sink. Detectives were eager to speak with Danielle. Therefore, once doctors reported that her injuries were not life-threatening, she was questioned. During the interview, she repeatedly changed her statements. Initially, she claimed to have thought her husband died of heart disease. Later, she stated that he had taken his own life following an argument. However, experts refuted her claims. Such a wound is difficult to self-inflict, and individuals intending to end their life usually choose a simpler and less painful method. The autopsy showed that Michael died from blood loss. With timely medical help, his life could have been saved. Additionally, he had a lacerated left eye. Toxicological tests also revealed a high level of alcohol in his system. The investigation revealed that a few days before the incident, there was an argument between the spouses, witnessed by their elder daughter. Michael had been drinking and burst into the bathroom where Danielle was hiding. However, their daughter Jaden intervened, taking the bottle away from him. After this, Danielle left the house and returned once her husband had fallen asleep. According to the girl, it was the first time she had seen such a burst of anger in her father, for which he later apologized multiple times. She still maintained that he was a loving and caring father, while asserting that her mother was the instigator of conflicts. The next day, the couple reconciled. Michael invited his wife and children to a soccer game. However, according to witnesses, Danielle appeared upset and was virtually non-communicative. That evening, the parents dropped their kids off at a friend's house for a sleepover and were left alone. Later, Danielle stopped by McDonald's and returned home around 10:30 p.m. Upon entering the house, she found her husband drunk. During dinner, Danielle received a message from an unknown man. Michael saw it, bit off a piece of his hamburger, and spit it at his wife. He then attacked her, attempting to strangle her. In self-defense, Danielle grabbed the first thing she could, a knife, and stabbed him in the chest. He fell and began to bleed profusely. According to the defendant, she immediately called emergency services, but mistakenly dialed the wrong number. Her actions were later corroborated during the investigation. In a state of shock, she lay down next to Michael and fell asleep until morning. At least, that's how Danielle explained the 11 hours of inactivity. When asked by the prosecution why she lied during the emergency call and subsequent questioning, Mrs. Redlick explained that she was afraid. She was concerned that no one would believe she had acted in self-defense. There were reasons for this fear. Shortly before the incident, she had been involved in a scuffle with friends. When police arrived at the scene, she resisted, attempting to bite one of them. She also refused to cooperate with the investigation, leading to charges of disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. Danielle had been on probation for about a year. It was also established that the cuts on her wrists were self-inflicted. She claimed she had tried to end her life due to the emotional turmoil, but the nature of the injuries suggested otherwise. They were superficial and not life-threatening. Therefore, her claims were not believed. Investigators also discovered that Danielle was far from a role model. After learning of Michael's infidelities, she signed up on a dating site where she interacted with men and retaliated by being unfaithful. Her profile status declared that she was single and not in a relationship. Analysis of countless messages between Michael and Danielle showed that she still loved her husband. Once she learned of his affairs, she felt betrayed and disillusioned. She also found out that Michael planned to leave her, despite appearing repentant and desiring to mend their relationship. Danielle explained that it was hard for her to understand and accept her husband's actions. She was heartbroken that she had dedicated the best years of her life to a man who did not appreciate her. The prosecution used this information against her. The prosecutor argued that the crime was premeditated in a fit of rage because she could not forgive his infidelity and the impending divorce. Like Mr. Redlick, she was also prone to fits of anger, confirmed by their neighbors who noted that the couple often argued loudly, escalating into physical altercations. However, Michael and Danielle were described differently by those who knew them. Michael was portrayed positively as kind and helpful, while Danielle was seen as quarrelsome. Video evidence was presented showing the defendant acting irrationally and attacking her husband. Friends and Michael's brother agreed with this portrayal. One of them recalled calling her crazy, but assured that all would be well as long as steak knives were hidden. Danielle's lawyer argued that her actions were dictated by self-defense and the history of emotional and physical abuse. Relatives, often witnesses to their arguments, confirmed that Michael was rough and emotionally abusive. They also knew he frequently physically abused and humiliated her, although he never did so in their presence. Some family members reported that Danielle was nervous and quick-tempered, which only emerged after years of marriage. The prosecution clung to the fact that she effectively left her husband to die, which indicated she was waiting it out. They proved that her account logged into a dating app the night of the incident, suggesting premeditation driven by hatred and resentment, possibly even for financial gain. Following the divorce, Danielle stood to lose a portion of their accumulated wealth. At the time of Michael's death, her net worth was estimated at $1.2 million. It was also brought up that she had repeatedly changed her statements, seemingly trying to confuse the investigation and possibly tampered with evidence. However, the defense maintained that Mr. Redlick was a manipulator and predator. After his first wife's death, he pursued his stepdaughter relentlessly and molded a young woman to suit his needs. During the investigation, the prosecution offered the defendants a plea deal to admit to manslaughter, which would have resulted in only 10 years of imprisonment. However, she declined, despite the fact that if found guilty of first or second-degree murder, she faced a life sentence. She continued to insist on her innocence. The outcome of the trial was surprising to everyone. On July 17, 2022, the jury delivered their verdict. They found Danielle Redlick not guilty of premeditated murder, as they believed her actions were indeed in self-defense. However, they found her guilty of tampering with evidence, for which she received a 5-year suspended sentence. Having already served 3 years, these were credited to her. On August 5th, 2022, the day the sentence was announced, the defendant was released in the courtroom. What do you think? Was the verdict fair? Or were the jurors cleverly misled into believing that Danielle's taking Michael's life was calculated and cold-blooded? On a vast site 60 miles south of Melbourne lies a landfill. As with any dump on a large plot of land, there are towering piles of domestic waste. Birds circle over the meter-high piles, while a foul smell spreads for miles around. This place is usually devoid of people. However, in May 2004, hundreds of police officers were sifting through the trash. The scene resembled something out of an apocalyptic movie, especially when investigators and police officers donned protective suits against biological hazards and ultra-durable masks to guard against asbestos-ridden dirt. The area was littered with thousands of blue trash bags. Each day of searching was incredibly challenging. They had to check every bag. This lengthy and inevitable process significantly delayed the investigation. After 3 weeks of searching, the officers were disheartened and had exhausted their moral and physical resources. On the final day, they had one last chance to find the mother and daughter. Narelle Fraser, a young woman working in the missing persons department, had put significant effort into the search from the first day, each time apprehensively beginning the inspection of a new blue bag. Around 10 a.m. on another day of searching, an excavator pulled up another batch of bags from the depths of a massive pile of garbage for inspection. Fraser noticed a blue bag stuck at the top of the bucket. As she had done hundreds of times over the past days, she paused the search to conduct a thorough examination of the excavated trash. Climbing up the pile, the woman opened the trash bag, but seeing only a kitchen glove, she signaled to continue the search. But something was off. The investigator's intuition brought her back to the bag, and when she reopened it, she saw something else. What she had mistaken for a kitchen glove was actually a bloated, decomposing human hand. She screamed aloud. She had found them. Today, let us visit the marvelous Australia, specifically Mornington Island, where despite the beauty of the surrounding nature, mild climate, and welcoming atmosphere, a nightmare akin to a horror film occurred. In May 2004, John Sharp appeared on television pleading for help. Holding a photograph, he tearfully implored anyone with information about the disappearance of his wife and daughter to contact the police and assist in their search. As it turned out, Anna Sharp and her 18-month-old daughter, Gracie, had been missing from their home since March. Let's start from the beginning and figure out who is involved in the disappearance of Anna and Gracie Sharp. We'll learn where the mother and daughter went, and whether John Sharp could have really harmed his own family, or if someone else is to blame for their disappearance. Anna Kemp was born on September 27, 1962, in Dunedin, New Zealand. As an adult, she moved to Melbourne, Australia, hoping to build a career, find love, and live her best life. John Miles Sharp was born on February 28, 1967, to Valerie and Miles Sharp. The couple owned several pastry shops and lived a quiet, peaceful life in Mornington, Victoria. John grew up in a large, happy family with 4 older sisters. Later, the Sharp family welcomed another boy. John Sharp's early years were largely unremarkable. He had social issues and was heavily dependent on his parents. He had low emotional intelligence and lacked the ability to cope with stressors in his life. Sharp completed 12 grades but failed his exams. In addition to a lack of emotional intelligence and an unwillingness to face his own problems, he couldn't handle stress, so he tended to shift decisions onto others. After leaving high school, John took a job at the State Bank, where he met Anna Kemp. At the time of their meeting, Anna was 31, and John was 27. They were very different in temperament. He was always a loner and had no friends because he had been very shy since childhood and could only communicate freely with his family members. Anna, on the other hand, was cheerful, lively, and attentive to others. This greatly attracted John, and he showed her as much attention as he could afford. At first, she did not like him, but then she noticed his interest in her and saw how he opened up around her, transforming from a reserved, silent man into a confident and engaging conversationalist. Anna took notice, and the young couple began dating. In October 1994, they married. The ceremony was modest and took place in a close family circle. Anna's close relatives from New Zealand also attended the wedding. but they did not share her choice, thinking that Anna was too good for him. Decorum prevented them from voicing their opinion out loud, so the parents remained silent and supported their daughter's choice. However, during the honeymoon, Anna herself began to doubt the correctness of her choice. In a phone conversation with her mother Lila, she complained that she had rushed into it and that there was no real strong love between her and John. But being a devout Catholic, she accepted her choice and decided to try to establish good family relations with her husband and become a full family. They lived together for 7 long years in various places around the Mornington coast and appeared to be a perfectly happy family. But in reality, they lived their lives separately. By the end of 2001, Anna and John learned they were expecting a child. Anna was happy as she had long dreamed of having a child, but John was opposed, as they had agreed before marriage that they would not have children. Anna disregarded John's opinion and kept the pregnancy. Thus, in August 2002, baby Gracie Louise Sharp was born. The little girl had a difficult start to life as she was born with hip dysplasia. This is a congenital malformation of the joint that is corrected by wearing a special brace for a long time. The principle of such a brace involves bending the child's legs at the knee and hip joint and holding them in such a position. Wearing the brace around the clock creates certain discomfort for sleep and full life. Such inconveniences for the little newborn girl were very difficult during the first few months of life. It was expected that this condition would not create long-term problems for Gracie, but in infancy, she felt very uncomfortable and experienced significant distress while wearing the brace. But Anna cared for her daughter with complete dedication, hoping to remove the brace as soon as possible. The girl was very weak, ate poorly, slept little, required constant attention and care. Anna's time was entirely occupied with caring for her daughter. John was dissatisfied that his wife, Anna, devoted all her time to their daughter Gracie, and their marital relationship grew increasingly tense. However, Anna was unconcerned with John's feelings, as she was fully occupied with their daughter. Even after the removal of Gracie's brace, her sleep issues worsened, prompting Anna to seek professional help. The ordeal was exhausting for her. Anna quit her job to dedicate all her time to Gracie. The Sharp family was financially well off and wanted for nothing. In previous years, John had started a company in property staging and flipping, which allowed them to build a substantial financial cushion. In late 2003, the couple bought a house on Prince Street, close to John's parents' home. Soon after moving in, Anna surprised John with news of her second pregnancy. Anna was thrilled, as she had dreamed of having 2 children, but John was very displeased with the news and even once questioned whether the child was his. Despite their differences, their relationship appeared to be quite good. On March 21st, 2004, Anna, John, and little Gracie were invited to a family celebration. They seemed perfectly happy, and none of the attendees noticed anything unusual. But 2 days later, Anna disappeared. John behaved oddly. Perhaps each person grieves in their own way, but he did not report her missing to the police, nor did he look for her among friends and relatives, as if he knew where his wife was. And so it turned out. Sometime later, John confidently told Anna's mother in a phone conversation that she had run off with another man. He explained that he didn't know where she was or with whom. He also mentioned that Anna had taken her mobile phone with her. However, little Gracie stayed with John. This was most strange to Anna's relatives. They couldn't believe it, knowing that Gracie was neither needed nor of interest to John, and Anna would never have done such a thing. Anna's relatives never believed the story John told them. They knew Anna well enough to believe that she would never leave her Gracie, who still required constant care. On March 28th, John called her parents again and reported that Anna had come home by taxi and taken Gracie. He also stated that Anna would not return and that the child she was expecting was not his. This news completely dismayed the Kemp family. What John told them about Anna was not true to their daughter, but Anna's mother was adamant that her daughter would not leave the house, especially 20 weeks into her pregnancy. So who is John Sharp, a grief-stricken father and husband, or a participant in the disappearance of his own family? Over time, Anna's family received a letter via social media,
stating that she had moved to another city to start a new life with a new lover, and asked not to be disturbed until she was fully settled. In the letter, she wrote that she was unhappy in her marriage to John, was tired, and wanted to start over in a new relationship. But Anna's relatives knew she would never behave like that, She would call, talk, and not hide like a fugitive. Moreover, the letter was not written in Anna's style, which cast significant doubt on whether it was actually penned by her. The facts that Anna herself wasn't answering phone calls, that she was unreachable, and the strange letter, seemingly not written by Anna herself, compelled her relatives to contact the police. Following protocol, the New Zealand police called John Sharp, but were told the same story about her leaving him for another man. There were enough suspicions to report the case to the police in Mornington, Australia, who immediately contacted John. Sharp failed to convince the police that everything was fine, and they promptly referred the case to the Victoria Missing Persons Unit. Within a few hours, an investigative team was dispatched. However, the truth is not always obvious, and the police conducted a thorough check. They visited the Sharp home, where John remained alone. John cooperated with the investigation and appeared genuinely distraught and upset. He recounted how Anna, upon leaving for the first time, got into a blue car. He reported that Anna and Gracie had moved to Chelsea. They took all their belongings and are likely now happily living their new life without him. After John's testimony, the police asked to inspect the house, and he agreed without hesitation. The first floor looked completely normal. The inspection of the second floor somewhat surprised the investigators. The main bedroom lacked a mattress, and the children's room was missing a crib. John explained that he had sold the mattress, and Anna had taken the crib to their new home. The police then checked Anna's phone. The last calls were to an insurance company and one from an unknown number. In the first case, she wanted to add a new family member to the insurance. The unknown number turned out to be from a regular TV repairman. It turned out Anna had arranged for him to come and repair the television in their living room on March 24th, which had been broken for a long time. The police located this repairman, and he said that when he arrived for the job, John answered the door and told him that his services were not needed as the television was already working. The police also checked social networks, but Anna did not use them. Despite their efforts, the investigators found no evidence that Anna Sharp had another man in her life. John reported that Anna had come home for Gracie by taxi, but no taxi company confirmed this trip. A significant lead in the search for Anna Sharp was a bouquet of flowers she sent on her mother's birthday with a signed card. However, the words in the card did not seem like wishes from Anna, again causing her family to doubt that everything was all right with her. Bank statement details showed that the bouquet was indeed paid for with Anna Sharp's card. As there were no witnesses or evidence to support John's claim that Anna had gotten into a blue car on the purported day she left, nor was there any evidence of bus, plane tickets, or hotel bookings. Anna's friends had absolutely no information that could confirm the story that she had run off with another man. So, what happened to Anna Sharp and her young daughter? On June 10th, John Sharp was questioned by the police again, but he stuck to his story. After the questioning, John Sharp was released. However, this was a tactical move by the investigators as they had put John under surveillance, hoping to catch any clue that could aid in the search. John Sharp was a loner who hardly made any calls and didn't entertain guests, so the investigators had undercover police follow him. During this period, John gave a memorable TV interview in which he tearfully pleaded with Anna to contact him, holding a photograph of Gracie and crying insincerely. The surveillance team continued to tail him and one day caught him in a suspicious act. After the interview, he drove to Chelsea Beach. He walked cautiously, frequently looking over his shoulder to ensure no one was watching or following him. He approached a specific bush on the shore and pulled out a white plastic bag. Taking it, he returned to his car. There, he took a phone out of the plastic bag and made a call, then drove to the nearest ATM and withdrew cash. After that, he put everything back in the bag and buried it under the bushes on the beach. All these suspicious activities were captured on video by the surveillance team. Then John went home and called the Missing Persons Department,
claiming his wife had just called him and withdrawn cash from their joint account. After obtaining video evidence of Sharp disposing of incriminating evidence in a trash bin and retrieving a credit card hidden in the plastic bag, he was arrested. During initial interrogations as a suspect, John continued to repeat his story. However, he could not explain why he buried Anna's phone and her bank card. John fell silent. The detectives knew they needed to find another way to get through to him, so they invited his parents, showed them the incriminating footage of their son on Chelsea Beach, and then sent them to talk to him. An hour later, they emerged, and Sharp was ready to talk. Initially, John Sharp stuck to his story, but eventually, he confessed to the elimination with a spear gun of 41-year-old pregnant Anna Marie Kemp Sharp and 20-month-old Gracie Louise Sharp. During press conferences with John, his parents were always present. John would interrupt the conversation and leave the room. He would feel ill. He behaved unnaturally. He would roll his eyes and cry. According to him, Anna was a tyrant with a difficult character. He decided to eliminate her to save himself. An adult man ended the life of his pregnant wife because, in his view, she stood between him and his family. But beyond his confession, the police continued to look for evidence. During further searches of the house with detection dogs in the bedroom and little Gracie's room, traces of blood were found. In the trash, they found notes where John had written everything he planned to say during interrogations. A torn photo with the name Francis was also found. Anna had hoped to name their expected son Francis. In subsequent interrogations, John Sharp detailed how he had planned the end of his pregnant wife and then his young daughter. On the evening of March 23rd, the couple argued, after which Anna went to bed, but John did not. He wallowed in self-pity, believing his marriage was unhappy. It was then he decided to retrieve his spear gun from the garage. The circumstances of buying the spear gun were quite suspicious, as John Sharp had never shown any interest in spearfishing or any sport requiring such equipment. Nevertheless, he bought 2 spears for the gun using cash, leaving no trace that could prove the purchase of the weapon. While his wife slept, he loaded the gun and returned to their bedroom. John positioned the gun just inches from her left temple and fired into her skull. The shot did not instantly end Anna's life, so Sharp took the second spear and fired again. He then covered his now deceased wife with towels to avoid looking at her face, went downstairs, and slept on the couch. The next day, John Sharp woke up and went about his day as usual. He dropped his daughter Gracie off at daycare, came home, and a TV repairman visited while Anna's body still lay in the bed upstairs. After the repairman left, John tried to remove the spears stuck in his pregnant wife's head. It was a difficult task, so Sharp decided to unscrew the shafts and leave the spear tips inside Anna's skull. Then, he dug a shallow grave in the backyard and buried her, throwing her into a dirty pit. He then casually went to pick up his daughter from daycare as if nothing had happened. The deception began. John Sharp made up an elaborate story about his wife leaving him for another man and told it to his mother-in-law in New Zealand. On March 27, 2004, John put his daughter Gracie to bed. He drank several glasses of whiskey and Coke. While intoxicated, he went to the garage and loaded his shotgun with a spear he had just purchased and buried the other 2 spear tips in the backyard with his wife. He then walked over to Gracie's crib and aimed the weapon at her head. Either Sharp closed his eyes or the alcohol prevented him from aiming, but the first shot penetrated Gracie's skull but did not cut off her life. She screamed in agony as the spear slammed into her head. Then he reloaded the gun and fired 2 more shots at Gracie. Amazingly, she survived. Finally, the distraught father pulled the first spear out of Gracie's skull and fired the final fatal shot. John Sharp later admitted that the moment he ended his wife's life, he knew he had to do the same to his daughter. He even took Gracie with him to the sporting goods store to buy new spears for the shotgun. The next day, Sharp covered his daughter's face with a towel because he couldn't bear to look at her dead face and removed the spears from Gracie's head. He then wrapped her in garbage bags, secured her body with duct tape, and threw his daughter into a landfill along with her toys and the weapons he used to end her life. Then, John exhumed Anna's body and dismembered it with a chainsaw. He wrapped the body parts in trash bags and secured them with tape. He then placed them in the trunk of his car and drove to the landfill. The investigators had enough evidence for an arrest, but did they have enough to charge and convict him? There was still hope that further surveillance might lead them to the bodies. However, after several days of inactivity from John Sharp, the team decided to arrest him and bring him back to the Missing Persons Department. John Sharp's confession to the ends of his wife and daughter was just the beginning of the horror. The task of finding the bodies he dumped at the landfill like trash was daunting. Due to space constraints, bins from the Mornington City dump were transferred to another landfill. The trash bags were traced to an incident location in Tuarong, and thanks to meticulous waste management at the landfill, police were able to pinpoint an area of about 100 square meters where they believed the bodies would be found. This saved the team an immeasurable amount of time and effort. At the end of June, extensive searches began. and for the next 3 weeks, the police meticulously sifted through the trash at the landfill near Devil Bend Reservoir. Australian winter corresponds to summer months, and almost all 3 weeks were rainy and chilly. However, the search did not stop for a minute. For the police officers searching for the mother and daughter, this case became a personal mission. They ventured out in any weather and on their days off, despite the challenges of working in protective suits, masks, and the daunting environment. After 19 days, Norelle Fraser discovered a bundle containing part of Anna Sharp's body. Later, photographs of Anna's mother and other personal items were found at the landfill, likely fallen out of the bag when it tore during handling. After this long-awaited discovery, Norelle Fraser shared that she would never forget the experience of finding Anna Kemp's body. She felt as if Anna was somehow calling out to her to be found. She also confessed that the initial thrill the team felt at the first discovery quickly faded with the realization that little Gracie must be nearby. "I just held my head in my hands and cried. I cried for what Anna went through, for Anna's family, for humanity, I guess. At the thought of Gracie being there..." Fraser paused. By the end of July, all bags containing the remains of Anna and Gracie were found. At the trial, John Sharp confessed to the premeditated ends of Anna Kemp and Gracie. The adult man explained his act by saying his wife had been getting on his nerves. Therefore, he purchased a spear gun and practiced using it in the shed several days before the act. On the night of the act, after Anna had gone to bed, he grabbed the spear gun and fired at her head while she was asleep. He then buried her in the backyard. The next day, John Sharp went to a hardware store in Frankston and purchased a roll of duct tape, 2 polyethylene tarps, and an electric chainsaw. That same evening, after drinking heavily, he used the same spear gun to fire at his young daughter's head. Over the next few days, Sharp exhumed his wife from her shallow grave, cut her body into 3 parts, and disposed of her in the same manner as he had his daughter. He placed the body in a garbage bag and discarded it with household trash. As the charade continued, John began a thorough cleanup. He disposed of blood-stained mattresses and sent fake emails posing as Anna. He threw away Gracie's belongings and sent flowers to his mother-in-law for her birthday. In an effort to sustain his deception, John used Anna's bank card in a bank in Chelsea and even sent an email to her mother in New Zealand, pretending to be her. John Sharp appeared on television, pleading with his wife to contact him and her family to reassure them of her safety. "Anna, our marriage is over, but I still love you, and you are the mother of our wonderful daughter Gracie, whom we both adore more than anyone else." He signed a written statement to the police, claiming he had nothing to do with her disappearance. John Sharp continued to lie for 3 months. However, he was no actor, and his script did not have the ending he had planned. On August 5th, 2005, John Miles Sharp was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences for the murder of his pregnant wife and child, with no chance of parole for 33 years. He is currently held in solitary confinement due to threats and assassination attempts by fellow inmates. John Sharp, dubbed the Mornington Monster, was sentenced in 2005 to 2 consecutive life terms and is considered the worst case of familicide in Victoria. Anna and Gracie were buried in Anna's hometown. The name of their unborn son, Francis, is inscribed on their shared headstone. In Gracie's documents, the father's name is now left blank. But did John really murder his wife because of their loveless marriage and his desire not to have another child, or was there another motive? In addressing his dislike for his wife and child, he could have done what many in the modern world do, divorce and move on alone, but that's what any rational person would say. John Sharp, a true monster, chose to solve his problems by ending the lives of his loved ones. Amidst all the madness that had taken over his mind, it's clear that he had lost touch with reality. There's no other explanation.
In April 2015, the small town of Leeton in New South Wales, Australia, came to a standstill. Businesses closed, and the local high school suspended classes as the community was engulfed in sorrow and mourning, gathering to honor the memory of Stephanie Scott and offer condolences to her family. Over 1,000 people attended Stephanie's funeral, and a public memorial was organized for everyone to join in the communal grief. Many attendees wore Stephanie's favorite color, yellow, releasing yellow balloons into the sky, symbolizing the liberation of her spirit soaring into the heavens. The gathering prayed for Stephanie's eternal rest and comfort and healing for her loved ones. The song chosen for Stephanie and her fiancé Aaron's first wedding dance played, reminding everyone of the young couple's cruelly interrupted story, filling hearts with sadness and sorrow. Stephanie Scott, only 26 years old, was kind, intelligent, and always smiling. From childhood, she was curious and active, participating in school clubs and sports. As an adult, she followed in her father Robert's footsteps as a teacher, sharing his passion for education. She taught English and drama at Leeton High School, taking great pride in her work. Stephanie and Aaron, slightly younger than her, knew each other from a young age. They spent time together, shared interests, and played sports in their hometown. They were close friends until Aaron turned 21, when their relationship blossomed into romance. In early April 2015, Stephanie and Aaron were busily preparing for their wedding, scheduled for the 11th. Stephanie, a perfectionist, had spent months meticulously planning every detail. Almost everything was ready, with arrangements set and a honeymoon booked in Tahiti. She had recently celebrated her bachelorette party. The only remaining task was to rehearse their first dance, for which they had taken many lessons. The first weekend of April reminded them that their eagerly awaited day was almost upon them. Aaron invited Stephanie to join him at a party out of town, but she declined to finish some remaining tasks, including finalizing plans for her students during her honeymoon absence. On Easter Sunday, April 5, 2015, around 11 a.m., Stephanie Scott headed to her school in Leeton, New South Wales, to hand over some work to a deputy teacher. She parked her car on the street and walked to meet a colleague who lived nearby. Together, they opened the school gates and entered. Stephanie then locked the gates behind them and, with keys in hand, proceeded to the English teacher's office. There, she sent an email to a bus company confirming transportation arrangements for her wedding guests. After working for a couple more hours, feeling joyful that all her tasks were successfully completed, Stephanie left the administrative building and walked towards the gates. Aaron, aware that Stephanie had left and would be away for a few hours, grew worried as the evening approached. He had texted her the day before and received prompt replies. However, on April 5th, he received no response from Stephanie. Returning home after 7 p.m., Aaron found that Stephanie was still not back, and her car was absent from the street. Trying to manage his anxiety, he reasoned that perhaps the stress of the upcoming wedding and leaving her students for an extended period had exhausted Stephanie, and she wanted some alone time. Yet, such complete silence was out of character for her. Even amidst the excitement of wedding planning, Stephanie had been enjoying every minute, eagerly sharing details about her dress and the wedding menu. She didn't appear nervous or depressed, but rather excited and ready for her big day. With his concern growing and sleep eluding him, Aaron texted Stephanie again in the morning before calling her family. More than a day had passed since Stephanie's disappearance, and Aaron went to the Leeton police station to report his missing fiancée. The police, after inspecting the vicinity and noting Stephanie's car's disappearance, speculated that she might have left the school and been involved in an accident or gotten stuck in a ditch or creek. Helicopters were deployed to search the area, while ground police headed straight to the last known location of Stephanie Leeton High School. Due to Easter Sunday and the limited number of people at the school, there were few witnesses, complicating the police investigation but also ruling out hundreds of potential suspects. A check of the school's alarm system in Stephanie's classroom revealed that she had deactivated it at 1:30 p.m. and reactivated it at 1:38 p.m. This provided the police with the precise time when Stephanie was nearby, but it was the only detail they could ascertain. Detectives attempted to use phone tracking, but Stephanie's mobile phone was turned off. The last activities on her bank accounts or social media were on Saturday, April 4th. Local news broadcasts began covering the story by April 7th, while hundreds in the small community eagerly sought any information about Stephanie. However, such behavior was completely uncharacteristic of Stephanie, and as each day passed with her wedding approaching, hope began to fade. Stephanie's mother, Marilyn, stated that if her daughter was not found within the next few hours, it likely meant something terrible had happened. A reporter from a local newspaper in Leeton reported that the police resumed searching the school. They spent most of the day using digital mapping technology to study the school's premises, and specifically marked the room where Stephanie worked on the day of her disappearance. A witness near Leeton High School on Easter Sunday mentioned hearing strange noises around 2 p.m., like rustling and dragging something on the ground. He recalled seeing Stephanie's car under a covered walkway, but didn't think much of it at the time. Later, her car disappeared. Another witness, a school employee, told detectives about an odd conversation he had with one of the school's cleaners the morning after Stephanie's disappearance. Amidst the rumors and anxious talk about the missing girl, the witness asked the cleaner when he last saw Stephanie, and he replied that he hadn't seen her on the day she disappeared. When asked if he thought Stephanie might have run away due to wedding stress, the man strangely and nervously laughed, which felt unsettling to the witness. Additionally, the witness noticed that the cleaner's face had scratches. The police decided to question him for additional information. This was 24-year-old Vincent Stanford. Detectives had a brief conversation with Vincent, who explained that he stopped by the school to take out the garbage bins, although he wasn't scheduled to work that day. He claimed he was there for a short time because he was in a hurry to buy groceries. Vincent asserted he didn't see Stephanie at that time and couldn't help, but wished them luck in their search. He added that he left the school after 3 p.m. to go to the store where he always shopped. The police contacted the store that Vincent claimed to visit, only to learn it was closed on the specified date. This meant Vincent had reasons to lie about the store, making him a suspect in the investigation. Investigators decided to conduct another thorough interrogation of Vincent and went to his home, where he lived with his mother. When they arrived, Vincent was not home. His mother allowed the police to search the house, where they found a set of keys on a red and white cord, matching the description of Stephanie Scott's keys. While the police were bagging evidence, Vincent arrived in his car. He was immediately detained, and his car was confiscated. In the back seat, they found several MDF panels, seemingly stained with blood. Police also noticed tire tracks in front of the house, not matching Vincent's vehicle. Additionally, a used condom was found on the ground, with its wrapper in the bedroom. They asked Vincent where he was on that day, and pointing to a camera on the front passenger seat, he said he was taking photos. Detectives asked for permission to view the camera, and Vincent agreed with a shrug. When the police turned on the camera, the first image they saw was a photo of a burnt woman's corpse lying in a wooded area. Vincent tried to explain it away as just shots from a movie he had filmed, thinking they were funny. However, the police realized these were actual crime scene photos, with Stephanie as the victim. Vincent Stanford, the cleaner at Leeton High School, was immediately arrested. His seized phone and laptop revealed many photos of young girls, both from Leeton High School and from the internet, as well as pictures of women he obviously stalked. This painted a grim picture of his behavior. Although Stephanie's body had not yet been found, Vincent was charged with her murder on April 9th. News of his arrest quickly spread. Vincent Stanford, 24, was detained in connection with Stephanie Scott's disappearance and presumed murder. During this time, a search team found Stephanie's car abandoned in a secluded area, 8 kilometers from where she was last seen. However, her body was still missing, and the search continued. Detectives worked to identify the location where the photos with the body were taken. On April 17th, 5 days after last seeing Stephanie, another witness came forward. He reported seeing a car near a canal around 4 p.m. on Easter Sunday. A man got out of the car and threw an object resembling a laptop into the water before driving away. The police soon retrieved the laptop from the canal bed, confirming it belonged to Stephanie. Meanwhile, divers continued to search for the slain schoolteacher's body in the New South Wales River area. Reporter Natalie Cooper, in a live broadcast, discussed the ongoing search for Stephanie's body. The 26-year-old schoolteacher's body was still missing. Police scoured fields and vineyards near where her red Mazda was found earlier in the week. Police divers also explored the canal in the area, retrieving a laptop believed to be Stephanie's. Cooper mentioned a shrine near the site visited by many that morning. The entire community was deeply saddened, regardless of personal acquaintance with Stephanie. Her family and fiancé visited the shrine the previous night, lighting candles, praying, and comforting each other in their grief. The reporter also noted that police were desperately searching for any sightings of a white vehicle, believed to be owned by Vincent Stanford, the suspect in Stephanie Scott's murder. Witnesses were urged to contact the police immediately. Meanwhile, Vincent, in custody, voluntarily approached the police, requesting to speak with them. He divulged all details to the detectives, including information on where to find Stephanie's body. According to Vincent, on the day of the incident, Stephanie was in the upstairs teacher's room working on a computer with the door to her office open. Vincent was cleaning garbage bins using a pressure vacuum and needed to take some bins upstairs. That's when he noticed Stephanie. Vincent told the detectives that he suddenly had the urge to kill her and quickly went home to fetch his special kit, including handcuffs, Viagra, a knife, and cleaning supplies. He also Googled information about bride violence en route. Returning, he found Stephanie packing up to leave. When she walked past him, she looked into his eyes and smiled, wishing him a happy Easter. That's when Vincent abruptly grabbed her and dragged her into a storeroom. Detectives reminded him of the scratches on his face they noticed during their first encounter and asked about their origin. It turned out some scratches were from Stephanie's microphone and others from her nails as she defended herself while he tried to kill her. Vincent described how he grabbed Stephanie from behind, covered her mouth with his right hand, and encircled her waist with his left hand before taking her to the storeroom. He shut the door and violently threw her to the ground, hitting her from left to right. After assaulting Stephanie, Vincent used the knife to kill her. He felt compelled to do so, admitting to harboring many brutal thoughts and schemes, and having previously killed others. He speculated about having some psychological issues, clarifying that he harbored no hatred towards his victims, but simply enjoyed killing. Vincent then recalled feeling a hunger pang and decided to go home for a sandwich and coffee. Leaving Stephanie lying alone on the storeroom floor, he went to his car. After eating, he returned to the school, placed Stephanie's body in the trunk of her car, and drove her to his home, parking the car on the street. On Easter Monday, Vincent drove Stephanie's car with her body to a national park. There, he removed her body from the trunk and stripped it on the ground. He noticed many bruises and abrasions on Stephanie's face, including swelling on the right side and a bruise under her eye. He then decided to cover the body with branches and douse it with gasoline. He used a match to ignite the fire, which he discarded nearby. Vincent stayed briefly, taking several photos of Stephanie's body with his camera, then waited 5 minutes to ensure the fire was well lit before leaving. He abandoned Stephanie's car on a secluded country road and walked back to town. In response to detectives' questions about the brutal treatment of Stephanie, Vincent continued to deny such actions, although the officers knew it to be untrue. As a result, he faced additional charges of aggravated harm and physical injury to a woman. Investigators inquired why, in the photographs, the woman was undressed except for a bra. Vincent explained that he usually removes almost everything, leaving only the bra. He wasn't sure why he did this, possibly wanting a souvenir. He admitted taking Stephanie's bra. Regarding her earrings and wedding ring, Vincent claimed he didn't remember when he removed them from the woman, but likely threw them in a trash bin along with other items. In fact, Vincent had removed Stephanie's wedding and graduation rings and sent them to his twin brother Marcus, who lived in Adelaide. Marcus sold the rings and earrings at a jewelry store, then destroyed Stephanie's driver's license after taking a photograph of it. A 24-year-old man was arrested at his home in the Adelaide Hills around 7 a.m. Neighbors were shocked, but the next chapter in a murder case captivating the nation unfolded right on their doorstep. It was shocking and unsettling for their small street and community. Marcus, Vincent's identical twin, worked on a flower farm. His colleagues described him as very quiet and reserved, hardly interacting with them beyond work. During the trial, Marcus Stanford had no lawyer, and when the judge asked if there were any reasons he should not be sent to Leeton, he replied with a strong Dutch accent that he had never been there and did not need to go. However, the next morning, he was taken to Sydney under police escort and remained in custody. Stephanie's family was further devastated when the police announced a second arrest in Stephanie's case, Vincent's twin brother Marcus. Finally, the search for the missing Stephanie came to an end. In fact, while Vincent was still giving his confession, the police had already located Stephanie's body. A day before her wedding date, a burnt body of a woman was found in a national park 60 miles from Leeton Middle School. Detailed investigation revealed that Stephanie had been brutally beaten on the head with a total of 40 blows, causing her death. Additionally, she had been stabbed in the neck before her body was discarded and set on fire. Photographs found on Vincent's phone conclusively showed that they were of Stephanie. Vincent Stanford's guilt was undeniable, and both he and his brother Marcus were brought to trial. In court, events unfolded unexpectedly. Initially, Vincent denied his guilt, and the proceedings became uncertain. However, based on the presented evidence and police work, it was decided that the case could lead to a conviction. Psychological tests showed that Vincent was believed to be a serial killer, posing a danger. He displayed a lack of emotions and sympathy, was merciless and indifferent, often laughing and not taking the situation seriously. Several troubling moments from his biography came to light. Vincent Stanford was born in Australia, but his family moved to the Netherlands when he was 3 years old. They later returned to New South Wales. At age 7, he dreamt of committing a murder. At 12, he nearly strangled his teacher. Classmates called him a psychopath, and due to problems with violence and disobedience, he was sent to a behavior correction school. He said he could never adapt to society and was later placed in a psychiatric center where he was diagnosed with autism and oppositional defiant disorder. Vincent told the police that after being released, he tried to enter university or join the army but was rejected in both cases. Therefore, he worked at several different places before getting a job as a cleaner at Leeton Middle School. His initial contract was for 5 weeks but was then extended. While working at the school, he often hid in the women's restroom during student lunch breaks to watch them. Examining Vincent's mobile phone, detectives found he stalked girls at the school and 2 other women working in nearby shops before murdering Stephanie. Numerous photos of one young girl, about 2,000, were found on his phone. He also kept diary entries about her, following her home several times and noting when she left, trying to determine who else was inside. One entry read, "She's home alone at 15:40, enough time to abduct." He initially targeted this young girl, but when his plan failed because she left town, he turned his attention to Stephanie, who worked at the school. Upon careful examination of Vincent's car, it was found that stains on MDF panels confirmed the presence of Stephanie's DNA. Additionally, during a search inside the Stanford home, investigators found traces of Stephanie's blood on a knife, several condom packets, and her bra. After admitting guilt in selling Stephanie's rings, destroying evidence, and assisting Vincent in hiding facts, Vincent's twin brother Marcus was sentenced to 15 months in prison. The judge noted that Marcus's sentence did not include the possibility of early parole, as there is no such practice. Marcus was sentenced to 1 year and 3 months in prison for his involvement in Stephanie Scott's murder. The sentence was to end on September 9, 2016. Had Marcus not pleaded guilty, he would have been sentenced to 1 year and 8 months in prison. In October 2016, Marcus was released. Over 60 people signed a petition calling for an appeal of the court's decision regarding Marcus Stanford, describing it as pathetic. After his release from prison, Marcus briefly returned to Leeton, accompanied by his mother. However, the local community made it clear that his presence was unwelcome and his current whereabouts remain unknown. Marcus has apologized for his actions since his release, claiming he will cause no further trouble and admitting his actions were truly foolish. He regrets his inability to change the past. Marcus wishes to have no contact with his brother Vincent and does not seek to establish any. The twins' father, Steve, expressed confusion and fear over Vincent's crimes and has no desire to communicate with him. He rules out the possibility of meeting Vincent and wants nothing to do with him. Steve stated he cannot comprehend why Vincent committed these crimes, and frankly, he does not intend to seek an answer. On the day before Stephanie's 28th birthday, Vincent Stanford was sentenced to life imprisonment for murder and 15 years for sexual violence under aggravating circumstances. Both sentences were effective from April 8, 2015. During the trial, Stephanie's mother, Marilyn, stated that Vincent was unable to cope with his own life and therefore took Stephanie's, depriving her of a chance at a happy future. They will never know the full extent of their daughter's suffering, but the knowledge that she suffered is too hard to bear. Thus, the family prefers to retreat from the public eye to mourn their beautiful girl, and overcome their grief. In the future, Stephanie's relatives will not respond to questions, participate in interviews, or television programs. The day after the trial, the family planned to celebrate Stephanie's too short and amazing life on what would have been her 28th birthday, the second birthday they've celebrated without her. A tea party with mint cookies was scheduled for 3 p.m., and Stephanie's mother invited everyone to join. The Scott family also called for stricter screening and evaluation of school staff to prevent similar incidents in the future and reduce risks to students like those faced by Stephanie Scott. Tragically, more than a year after Stephanie's death, her father Robert died in a bizarre accident when a tree fell on him, leading to his death. He was buried near the same place where his daughter was interred. Having lost Stephanie, Aaron moved to Europe, hoping to heal his pain associated with New South Wales. 5 years after losing his beloved, Aaron met a new love and announced his engagement to a woman named Samantha. The community of Leeton was deeply affected by the tragic story of Stephanie Scott. She will never be forgotten, and her life story has been immortalized in books. Stephanie's family hopes that people will remember her and all her remarkable qualities, her passion for teaching, helping, and mentoring others. They believe Stephanie embodied all the good qualities of a human being and made a significant impact on many lives. In her memory, her loved ones encourage everyone to be kind to themselves and strive to do good in the world. Stephanie Scott's story leaves a profound mark that inspires everyone to live a life filled with caring for others. Today's story began on a Saturday evening in July 2011 during a dance lesson when Joseph Saunier, a respected and wealthy pathologist, first met Rochelle Tina, a single man, famous in his city and beyond, enjoying freedom, status, and money, and a beautiful, sweet woman, almost 10 years younger than Joseph, successful and living a life of pleasure. Meeting on the dance floor was the beginning of their story, which unfortunately ended in tragedy. At that moment, when the ideal partnership in the dance grew into a tender and passionate romance, no one could not even imagine what events would follow after a while. The biography of Joseph Saunier, before meeting Rochelle, is a path full of joys and tragedies. Born in 1955 in a respected family of doctors in Shreveport, Louisiana, Joseph from childhood dreamed of continuing the work of the family and become a doctor. With outstanding abilities, the young man earned a Bachelor of Science in Medical Science cum laude from the University of Baton Rouge in 1976. He then applied to Louisiana State University in Shreveport and began working at Parkland Hospital in Dallas, Texas. The young man perfectly combined his university studies and work. Wanting to achieve professionalism in his chosen activity, he constantly took additional workload at the university and honed his knowledge and practice at the hospital. The management noticed the success and zeal of the young employee, and in the last year of training he received the position of chief resident. Upon completion of his studies, Joseph chose the field of pathologic anatomy, later becoming a respected pathologist and laboratory director in Lubbock, Texas. Joseph's life was marked by the tragic loss of the woman he loved. His marriage, which lasted 27 years and which he considered happy, ended in divorce. His wife fell in love with another man. Joseph accepted her choice and agreed to divorce, believing that the man he loved had found his happiness. Dr. Saunier had a strong character and a great sense of nobility and responsibility. After the divorce, he maintained a very warm relationship with Becky and continued to support his 2 sons, showing resilience and strength of character. When Becky died 2 years later at the hands of her new husband Joseph, shocked by the heinous death of his former spouse, once again experienced a wave of grief and loss. He repeatedly recalled the family years gone by and mourned the loss. However, the doctor remained a pillar for the family. He immediately took over all the organizational issues and funeral expenses and helped his sons to survive the trauma. The children later admitted that it was his support that helped each of them overcome the pain. The tragedy left a deep mark on Joseph's heart. For a while, he fully devoted himself to work and the upbringing of 2 sons. Later, the grief he experienced led to a reassessment of life. The man decided to start a new personal chapter in a new city and with a new woman. In 2007, Dr. Sonnier moved with his sons from Dallas to Lubbock, Texas, where he accepted a position as chief pathologist at Covenant Health System. Feeling the need for something new to refresh him and fill the void inside, Joseph enrolled in a local dance studio. He enjoyed the classes, also because it was a place where he met different women. A couple of times he even tried unsuccessfully to build relationships with his dance partners. And then, one warm summer evening, Rochelle Tima appeared at the dance class. Elegant, graceful, refined woman with a sense of humor and lively eyes attracted Dr. Sonnier's attention at first sight. Her smile lit up the room, and Joseph realized she was exactly who he was looking for. Rochelle, for her part, also noticed the confident and respectful man moving deftly on the dance floor. Rochelle, 47, and Joseph, 57, paired up, complementing each other perfectly in the dance. With each new session, they realized they were growing closer. Dr. Sonnier suggested dating, and Rochelle agreed. Thus began a new, as it seemed at the time, happy chapter in the lives of both of them. Rochelle had an attractive and innate charm that had such a strong influence on men that they were willing to change their lives, destroy marriages, and commit criminal acts for her. Rochelle was one of those women who have a unique magnetism, attract attention, and cause passion. Such are called fatal women. Joseph and Rochelle's paths would not cross until a July evening because she had previously lived in Amarillo, a couple hours by car from Lubbock. In fact, they were both starting a new life with a clean slate after personal love dramas. Leaving Amarillo, Dr. Sonnier's new lover was running away from the fear and anxiety associated with Mike Dixon, owner of a private clinic in plastic surgery and cosmetology. The woman met Mike in 2008 when she came in for Botox injections. Initially, there was a purely friendly communication, then a slight flirtation, after a spark between them, and began a romance. Rochelle was a free, accomplished woman. For a long time, she worked as an executive in the NFL, built a successful career, and did not need anything. 4 children are grown. She owed no one anything. Unlike Mike, who was bound by the bonds of marriage, a plastic surgeon began leading a double life. A few months later, his wife found out about the affair and filed for divorce after 20 years of marriage. Mike was so infatuated with Rochelle that he almost did not notice how a huge stage of his life ended. He decisively separated from his wife. For Rochelle, who had never claimed to be married to Mike, an exciting affair from which she wanted only joy and ease turned into a union that required her to be just as maniacally obsessed with her partner. Not getting the attention he expected, Mike tried to pressure Rochelle, which only served to scare her away. Seeing the manipulation and the desire to completely control her life, the young woman decided to part with the plastic surgeon, and in 2010, the paths of former lovers parted. Nevertheless, even after the breakup, Mike for a long time pursued Rochelle, urging her to return. His obsession exceeded all healthy boundaries, forcing Rochelle to decide to move to disappear from his sight and free herself from his oppressive influence. That's how Rochelle found herself in Labico, intent on starting a new life. Dr. Sonnier and the beautiful, cheerful partner quickly hit it off. Gradually, their relationship grew into true love. Sons and relatives willingly accepted the new lover and were happy for Joseph. The man spared nothing for her, showered her with gifts, invited to the best restaurants and private clubs in the city, took her on trips. After Joseph realized that he finally found a worthy woman with whom he was ready to tie his life, he took her to Los Angeles and, in the presence of his entire family, made a proposal. At that moment, Rochelle was 47 years old, and she was literally crazy about her new man. Her personal page and social networks was filled almost daily with love confessions to Joseph. Of course, Mike Dixon couldn't help but see these confessions. The former lover was emotionally shocked to learn that Rochelle not only meets with a new man, but also openly confesses his love and is going to marry him. He realized that it would not be possible to get his former friend back, but he dared to offer her to resume the former format of meetings and become at least lovers. The idea to form a love triangle did not find a response. Rochelle firmly rejected the proposal and told Joseph about everything. After a while, the couple began to feel that they were being watched. At one point, they even noticed something resembling a camera flash through the backyard window, But they didn't pay much attention to it, not fully realizing the seriousness of the problem. The situation spiraled out of control on July 11th, 2012. A landscaper who had arrived at the doctor's home to discuss an upcoming remodel contacted emergency services. Upon arriving at the customer's home, he attempted to contact the owner, but received no response. The man noticed an open door and, assuming Joseph might not be able to hear him, went inside. He saw the house in disarray, and most disturbing was the presence of a bullet hole near the front door, indicating a possible intruder. The designer cautiously walked further inside in search of the homeowner and then examined the garage, where he found Joseph Saunier lying in a pool of blood on the floor with no signs of life. The doctor's body bore evidence of stab and gunshot wounds. Concluding that the perpetrator might be somewhere nearby, the designer immediately left the house and summoned help by telephone. At 2:48 in the afternoon, the police department received a call, and several patrol cars were immediately dispatched to the scene. Arriving officers found the victim of the crime, identified as Joseph Saunier, a 57-year-old pathologist. Medics confirmed the death of his colleague. The incident shocked the public as it occurred in one of the city's most peaceful, safe, and upscale neighborhoods with virtually zero crime. Dr. Saunier, a member of a respected profession, was known for his calmness and kindness and had no apparent enemies willing to harm him. Although a window had been broken, what had happened was not a robbery, for nothing was missing from the house. A bottle with the bottom shot through was found at the scene. It appeared to have been used as an improvised silencer for a firearm. A short time later, a forensic team arrived to collect evidence for examination. Apparently, the assailant was inexperienced as he left ample traces of the scene. DNA collected from the bottle used as a silencer, and blood samples found were sent to a lab for further testing. Neighbors interviewed by detectives claimed they did not see or hear anything suspicious. There were no CCTV cameras near the house. According to the investigation, the perpetrator entered the house using a panoramic window overlooking the backyard, a circumstance that made his attack unexpected. In the dining room, the attacker confronted his victim and began shooting. It was most likely at this point that the wine bottle was used as a silencer. Judging by the traces of blood left in the hallway, the doctor was still alive after the shots were fired. He went into the garage, where the attacker caught up with him and stabbed the victim a number of times. An autopsy on the body found 5 gunshot wounds and 11 stab wounds. The circumstances indicated that the murder was not a random crime. What remained unclear was who had done it and why. The investigation focused on the pathologist's close social circle. During an interview with law enforcement, the victim's fiancée recounted strange events in her and Joseph's life in the last months before the tragedy. According to her, it appeared that Dr. Saunier was being stalked. In addition, Rochelle herself had seen a stranger standing in front of Joseph's house watching the door and windows. She also described persistent calls and texts that began to be received by her fiancé just prior to his death. Officers verified the information, but believed the calls and messages came from other women with whom Joseph appeared to be in a parallel relationship, as there were witnesses who said the man was in contact with several women at once. Investigators asked Rochelle if she was aware of the other women. She answered that she was not. Joseph's sons denied the possibility that their father could have had mistresses, as cheating is not in the character of their father. However, investigators continued to develop a version of the crime motivated by jealousy. At the next interrogation, Rochelle could not withstand the pressure, cried, and admitted that she knew several women, probably involved in the crime. According to her, several former girlfriends were constantly stalking Joseph. He ignored them, but they never stopped expressing their displeasure about his future wedding. One of them turned out to be a lady from Florida who continued to persistently call and write even after Dr. Saunier revealed his serious relationship with Rochelle. Another was a nurse, a colleague of the pathologist, who also called and wrote to him regularly. The third was a woman with a daughter who, shortly before the murder, had sent a letter to Joseph, accusing him of abandoning her and her child. At the same interview, Rochelle mentioned Mike Dixon for the first time. Until then, she hadn't connected the surveillance of her and Joseph to Mike, since Mike had completely stopped paying attention after her refusal to become a mistress. She assumed he had accepted her marriage and moved on with his life. The police had a viable suspect and they went to talk to the plastic surgeon. Mike willingly went to talk to the detectives. He admitted that he had indeed been deeply in love with Rochelle and had divorced his wife in the name of that love in an effort to create an opportunity for their future together. He admitted that the separation was a blow to him, and for some time he tried to get Rochelle back. She remained adamant, however, and he eventually relented and found a new woman, considerably younger than himself. His new girlfriend, a medical student, confirmed his alibi, as Mike was at work at the time of the crime and then spent time with her. The investigation ran into difficulties. All the suspects, including Rochelle herself, had incontrovertible alibis. Detectives tried to identify possible enemies of the murdered or people financially interested in his death, but no new figures were found. By the time the lab results came back, the situation appeared to be a dead end. The forensic results, unfortunately, did not add any clarity. The DNA sample from the bottle did not belong to the victim. However, the police database was unable to determine whose sample was found at the crime scene. And that's when law enforcement officials got unusually lucky. The police department received a call from Paul Reynolds, an aspiring EMT from Amarillo. According to him, he was sharing housing with a buddy named Dave Shepard, who had recently confessed to a murder committed in Lubbock, after which he attempted to take his own life, but was rescued. Paul relayed information that a neighbor had told him details of the crime, including specific details that only a small circle of detectives might have known, such as the use of a bottle muffler. The officers realized that Shepard was indeed involved in the crime. A witness who called claimed that Dave was only the perpetrator and that the person who ordered the crime was an unknown doctor associated with plastic surgery. Officers immediately began running a background check on the new suspect and found that Shepard had a violent criminal history with theft and hooliganism, but no major crimes. They determined that he was divorced, unemployed, and had been caught stealing on several occasions, including one where he stole $30,000 from a prominent businessman. Dave was taken to the station for questioning, and pretty quickly he began to confess, confirming that Mike Dixon had indeed hired him to commit the crime. According to Dave, the meeting with the plastic surgeon took place in a bar where both found themselves going through painful breakups with their partners. Under the influence of alcohol, the casual conversation turned into a true friendship. Mike Dixon told a sad love story, complained about Rochelle, who had left him and was now about to marry someone else. The man shared that he can't get over his former partner and is willing to do anything to get her back. Deciding that the only obstacle is Dr. Sonnier, Mike and Dave devise a plan. However, their intentions, according to Dave, did not include murder. They simply wanted to slander the pathologist so that proud Rochelle would leave him and want to return to Mike. First of all, they found women who were paid handsome sums of money, $1,000 each, to play the role of mistresses and pursue Sonnier. Then came a letter from a woman with a child claiming that Joseph had abandoned her. Dr. Sonnier denied it each time, and Rochelle believed him. It also turned out that the camera flash the couple had seen was the light from Dave's cell phone flashlight, who regularly drove to their house and played up the surveillance. Each such trip was financed by Mike Dixon, handing out money for gas and related expenses. When spying and slander failed to separate the lovers, Mike set out to fix the problem in a radical way. He told his friend that he wanted him to kill the pathologist. As payment, Dixon offered 3 silver bars totaling about $10,000. Dave agreed. One of the bars given as a deposit, the hired killer immediately cashed in at a pawn shop. According to Dave Shepard, when he arrived at Dr. Sonnier's house, things got out of control. It was an unintentional shooting. I got scared and he started walking away down the hallway. When I came to my senses from the shock, I shouted, "Dr. Sonnier, are you all right?" Hearing nothing back, I followed him into the garage. He was lying there flat. I distinctly heard his last breath, and I bent down to check his pulse. There was no pulse. In his confession, Shepard claimed that he allegedly stabbed Joseph Sonnier in an irrational and foolish attempt to cover up what he called involuntary manslaughter. "I stabbed him a couple times. I don't remember how many times. You say I stabbed 11 times. I had Dr. Sonia's phone in my hand, and I thought about dialing the emergency number to call for help, but I didn't. Maybe that's why 11 times. I put the phone back, mutilated the remains, and I went to Mike's, got the rest of the bullion, and tried to kill myself. According to Dave, agreeing to the crime, he did not understand what he was agreeing to, and when he found himself in front of Joseph, he realized that he could not kill. Had it not been for an accidental gunshot, Dr. Saunier would still be alive. The plastic surgeon was apprehended by police the same day on charges of first-degree murder based on Dave's testimony and an extensive body of other evidence, including compromising phone calls and text messages containing explicit confessions. At the first interview, detectives hoped to elicit a confession, but Mike Dixon stubbornly denied everything, demanding an attorney. A lawsuit ensued. Dave Shepard, as part of a deal with the prosecutor, immediately pleaded guilty to his role as a hired criminal and waived the right to appeal the sentence. As a result, instead of the death penalty, he received a life sentence without parole. Mike Dixon, against whom there was only circumstantial evidence, pleaded not guilty. Unexpectedly, Dave, who was a key witness for the prosecution, testified during the trial that he committed the crime on his own, without any involvement of Dixon in it. Under oath, he said that the silver bars were intended for investment in a business the two of them had intended to start. The jury was unable to reach a unanimous verdict, and a retrial was declared. The second trial took place in 2016. Dixon was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. An appeal filed by his lawyers led to the reversal of the judgment. The man was released on bail in the amount of $2 million, but the fight for justice did not end. The prosecutor's office sought to have the sentence reinstated by the highest criminal court of the state. Otherwise, a third trial was to be held. The prosecutor's office's motion, filed on February 11, 2019, was granted. In April 2020, the bail was revoked, and an arrest warrant was again issued. The Texas Court of Criminal Appeals reversed the lower court's decision and reinstated Mike Dixon's sentence. The judge ruled that the felon must continue to serve his life sentence without parole. Mike Dixon is currently incarcerated in a prison in Lubbock, Texas. Dr. Joseph Saunier became part of the love triangle when he began dating Rochelle in July 2011. The woman still calls him the main love of her life and regrets that she unknowingly led a criminal to a noble, loving, and honest man. In 2012, the family of one of the richest people in Brazil, businessman Marcos Matsunaga, became the center of attention after Marcos disappeared on the eve of a major billion-dollar deal. The case shocked the whole country, and photos of the inconsolable widow of the millionaire did not leave the front pages of the leading national publications. Initially, as the main version, the police considered the intrigues of competitors who could kidnap and get rid of the businessman in order to disrupt the upcoming deal. However, the revealed truth turned out to be much more cruel and terrible. The story of a cold-blooded murder and a monstrous attempt to cover up the crime formed the basis of several documentaries. Who is Marcos Matsunaga? Entrepreneur Marcos Matsunaga was one of the richest people in Brazil and ran a family business producing various food products, Yoki. The company was founded by Marcos's grandfather, who had once emigrated across the ocean. His name was Yoshizo Kitano, actually, from the first letters of the surname and first name of the founder, and the name of the brand was formed. The foundation of the future business empire was laid in the middle of the last century. It is noteworthy that it all started with a small flour milling enterprise, which managed not only to survive, but also thrive during the years of crisis and war, and then transformed into a huge company with a worldwide reputation and the widest range of products. Marcos was born into a wealthy family, and from an early age he knew no denial of anything. He did not have to build and develop his business from scratch, because he inherited everything that his grandfather and father had created, becoming the CEO of the family food company. He had every chance to become the first billionaire in his family, and he strived for this almost all his conscious life, but such grandiose plans were not destined to materialize. Everyone who was personally acquainted with Marcos characterized him as a good and quite talented businessman, who managed not only to save, but also to multiply the family capital, several times increasing profits. But he was not an easy man. Capricious, arrogant, with a heavy character, and a constant desire to control everyone who was near him. In addition, the businessman was far from handsome in appearance. He suffered from childhood overweight, had problems with vision, because of which he wore glasses, and he was also short in stature and somewhat clumsy. All this from an early age created a lot of problems for the boy when communicating with his peers. He had almost no friends and female representatives of the female sex, and had all shunned this strange and peculiar guy. Marcos, for a long time, all failed to build a long and serious relationship with anyone, because beyond a couple of dates, it did not go. Even his own business and multi-million-dollar inheritance did not make him an enviable and desirable bachelor. He repulsed women with his arrogance and egoism, so Marcos often used the services of escorts and representatives of the ancient profession. There is practically no information about the entrepreneur's first wife in open sources. It is only known that he did not marry out of great love or passion, but rather out of desperation and at the insistence of his relatives. Despite this, the marriage lasted several years, although both spouses almost immediately began to regret their decision to start a family. At first, the young wife tried to put up with the complex character of the businessman, hoping that in time they will manage to become a happy couple where both support and understand each other. But the young woman was wrong, and over the years they only increasingly distanced from each other. Also, Marcos constantly cheated on her and did not even try to hide it or somehow justify it. And he looked for mistresses mainly on websites where girls offered intimacy for money. Alice was one of those girls. She was an escort, and her portfolio was available on the relevant platforms. It was there that the businessman noticed a bright, attractive blonde with a beautiful figure and began to regularly invite her on dates, generously paying for them. Alice was 6 years younger than him. She was born and raised in a very poor and dysfunctional family living in one of the most crime-ridden areas of the city. Alice didn't know her own father. Her mother was a heavy drinker, and she was involved with men who shared her addiction. The girl had a hard and joyless childhood. At a very young age, she was repeatedly beaten, harassed, and abused by her mother's roommates. Barely finished school, Alice literally ran away from home and forever left the neighborhood in which she grew up. The girl took nursing courses, after which she got a job at a hospice. However, she soon realized that caring for dying patients is far from the limit of her dreams and abilities. In addition, sensitive and vulnerable young woman quickly became attached to people, and the death of each patient perceived as a personal tragedy. A few years later, Alice decided to get a higher education and completely change her occupation. Her choice fell on the law, which she considered a promising occupation, opening in life almost all the doors. She had long been preparing for admission, and was able to score the required number of points in the entrance exams, but to pay for her studies from her modest salary as a nurse, she could not. Alice had no one to help her, because she had severed all ties with her relatives after she left home. Then, young, pretty Alice, with a slender figure, decided to earn on her external data and registered on a site specializing in the provision of escort services. There she was helped to create a bright personal page, and soon wealthy men themselves began to show interest in the young blonde beauty. Escorting and providing intimate services brought Alice a good income, allowing her to pay for her studies and fully support herself. But she planned to leave this specific occupation as soon as she got her diploma and got a job in her specialty. During this period, Alice met Marcos, who became one of her regular customers. He was generous with gifts and met regularly with Alice without hiding from anyone. She knew that the businessman was married, but at the time, she couldn't have dreamed that one of the richest men in the country would leave his wife for her. The story of Alice Matsunaga was like a Cinderella tale. A poor girl from a disadvantaged family, engaged in providing escort services, meets a multimillionaire who soon falls madly in love with her. Marcos really literally lost his head, but now it is impossible to say for sure whether Alice herself made efforts to do so. After about 6 months, Marcos realized that he wanted not just to date his new young mistress, but to be with her permanently. He, without a second thought and regret, filed for divorce from his first wife and began to present everyone Alice as his fiancée. For obvious reasons, the businessman did not want anyone to know about how he met his chosen one, and what she earned a living. Therefore, the couple came up with a quite ordinary story of a casual acquaintance in a cafe and adhered to this version. Even the closest relatives and few friends of Marcos did not guess anything. However, Alice in the family Matsunaga received not too welcome. The parents of the entrepreneur guessed that this attractive young person put into action all her charm to fall in love with the rich but ugly Marcos. And now she was going to great lengths to pretend that she did not notice his hard character. Nevertheless, when Marcos announced his intention to divorce his first wife and marry Alice, no one strongly objected. The businessman arranged a lavish wedding in the traditional style, with a white dress, a large number of guests, and a huge tiered cake. After that, he moved his wife to his huge and luxurious mansion, where she became a full-fledged mistress. Matsunagi had long been known as an avid collector of expensive wines and rare weapons. For wines in his house was built a huge cellar, where the bottles were carefully sorted by year and country. And for weapons, the house had a secret room, on the walls of which from floor to ceiling flaunted firearms and edged weapons. Marcos was very proud of his collections and was constantly engaged in their replenishment. However, in addition, his house was literally full of antiques, luxury goods, and modern art, which tastelessly hung on the walls and stood literally on all surfaces. Soon after the wedding, the couple decided that they were ready to have an heir, but despite all their efforts, Alice for a long time did not get pregnant naturally. Then the couple decided to resort to the procedure of in vitro fertilization, but even here success awaited them far from immediately. When their common daughter was born, it seemed that the happiness of the couple now has no limits. The young parents were engaged in the education of the long-awaited baby girl, made plans for the future, and when the girl grew up a little, the whole family began to travel the world, getting acquainted with different cultures and traditions. Their daughter was a real little princess who was brought up in love, care, and luxury. But the couple had one very specific common hobby: hunting large animals. Although it would be more correct to say that it was always a hobby of Marcos, who at different times tried to join it to his chosen women and his first wife. But most women did not just dislike this activity, it frankly repulsed them. The businessman no longer hoped that he would meet someone who would share his passion. Now many believe that Alice became interested in hunting to win even more favor Marcos and conquer his heart. At first, they visited shooting ranges together, where Alice learned how to handle different types of firearms, and afterward they went into the woods together to hunt wild animals. Alice felt no pity when she took the lives of animals and treated it as a kind of competition. Either you do it or you don't. Marcos liked this approach, and he liked to watch his wife handle her weapons and stalk her prey. He also taught her how to skin and carve wild boars, deer, and other forest creatures. Together they skinned them and separated body parts using large knives, special cleavers, and axes. In addition, the family did not have cats or dogs as pets, but poisonous snakes for which special terrariums were built, with conditions as close as possible to their natural habitat. It was the realization of another long-time dream of Marcos, who adored snakes, but his first wife did not approve of the idea of having a home terrarium. Alice had really bought Marcos off by sharing his rather strange hobbies. In the spring of 2012, the entrepreneur was preparing to make perhaps the main deal of his life and career, which would make him a billionaire and take his income to a whole new level. He was actively negotiating with several business partners, going to sell the family company, and the proceeds of the huge sum of money to invest in a new profitable business. At home at this time, Matsunagi rarely appeared because he was completely absorbed in work and the realization of his grandiose plans. He and his wife moved into an elite apartment complex located in the business center of the city, not far from the main office of the businessman's company. Marcos was away almost all the time, while his young wife was bored alone in a luxurious apartment with a panoramic view of the city. The businessman's work schedule was scheduled literally by the minute. He was lost in meetings, business meetings, and consultations with specialists. Often he did not even spend the night at home, but promised his wife that as soon as the deal was done, their lives would be completely changed and transformed. On May 19, 2012, on the eve of the deal for $1 billion, the entrepreneur disappeared without a trace. His wife reported the incident only the next day because she believed that Marcos at work. According to Alice, in the evening he was scheduled a meeting which could last into the night, and early in the morning, her husband was to meet with a business partner, so he took some things, warned that most likely to spend the night in the office, and then go straight to the deal. When the next day Marcos did not return home and stopped answering his phone, Alice became concerned and reported him missing. The police immediately found out that the entrepreneur did not show up for a meeting in the evening or an important meeting in the morning, which he simply could not miss. In this regard, there was immediately a version that the millionaire was kidnapped, and most likely, his family in the coming hours will receive ransom demands. But 24 hours passed. Then the second, no ransom demands were received, and hopes that Matsunaga was still alive were literally melting before our eyes.
Investigators at this time did not sit idle and began to question relatives, friends, and business partners of the businessman, trying to find out whether he had enemies and who could be beneficial to his disappearance or the disruption of the upcoming deal. However, despite all efforts, it was not possible to find a specific person or people who might have wished the death of the businessman. He ran his business competently, was able to prioritize and plan his steps ahead, so that his strategic decisions made almost everyone always benefited. A few days later, after taking her little daughter, Alice came to the home of her father-in-law and mother-in-law to tell what she had not dared to tell the police. The young woman with tears in her eyes said that her husband has long been cheating on her with a girl named Natasha Villarreal Lima and did not hide it. True, after several major quarrels and threats to divorce, Marcos promised that he would leave the mistress for the sake of preserving the family. In fact, the man did not stop meeting with Natasha, but began to do it more carefully, so as not to provoke another family scandals. The wife guessed everything and decided to hire a private detective to gather evidence of the businessman's infidelity. Alice had photographs and videos of her husband on romantic dates with the same Natasha. It was noteworthy that he took his new girlfriend to the same restaurants and entertainment venues that he and his wife frequented and where everyone knew him. Marcos seemed to demonstrate to others how much he disdained his wife and can openly cheat on her without hiding from anyone. As it later turned out, Natasha Lima businessman found on the same site escort services where he once met Alice. They met for about 5 months, and during that time he gave her an expensive car and also paid a large sum of money for Natasha to remove her profile from the site. The available photos and videos proving her husband's cheating, the daughter-in-law presented to Marcos's parents. She also added that she had shown all this to Marcos the day before his disappearance, but instead of making excuses and asking for forgiveness, he simply packed his things, told his wife that he was leaving her, and then left their apartment and disappeared without a trace. Based on Alice's story, her husband, giving in to passion, simply decided to run away with a new mistress. But everyone who knew Matsunaga unanimously asserted that he could not just leave the business and disappear because he was too serious about the business, which for decades built his family. Answers to many questions were found about a week later, when in a deserted area, 100 kilometers from the house of the businessman, a passerby found scattered garbage bags, inside which were the remains of a human body. The man immediately reported the gruesome discovery to the police, and it soon became clear that the victim was Marcus Matsunaga, who was searched for all over the country. Experts determined that the businessman was killed by a shot to the head, after which his body was dismembered, packed into garbage bags, and taken to the outskirts of the city. It was noteworthy that the murderer, according to the pathologists, was either a surgeon or an experienced butcher who was proficient with a carving knife. Such a conclusion was inevitable, based on how accurately and professionally the cuts were made in the right places to separate the body parts from each other. At the first stage of the investigation did not have any concrete leads, so it was decided to start the investigation from the place where the deceased man was last seen alive. Elite residential complex where Marcos lived with his wife and daughter was equipped with numerous video surveillance cameras, the records of which began to be scrutinized. It turned out that the evening before the disappearance, the couple ordered food delivery home. On the recordings of the camera in the elevator was seen as Marcos goes down to the first floor and then comes back with boxes of pizza in his hands.
He enters his apartment and never leaves it again, not that evening, not at night, and not the next day. Matsunagi seems to disappear into his own home, but in the morning his wife leaves the apartment with 3 large wheeled suitcases. The footage shows that the suitcases are very heavy, and she moves them with great difficulty. The investigators had already guessed what kind of luggage it was. On the same day, the businessman's widow was taken into custody and brought to the police station to testify. At first, she tried to deny everything and stuck to the initial version that her husband had left her for a mistress. But when she was shown the elevator footage, she burst into tears and started talking. According to Alice, their family life has long since broken down, and from the former idyll is not left a trace. Her husband humiliated her, constantly reproached her with the work in the escort, saying that he pulled her out of the mud and also stated that she was a bad mother for their daughter. He also tried to control literally every move his wife made, not allowing her to make friends. When Alice once raised the topic of divorce, Marcos laughed and replied that he would leave her with nothing, take the child, and forbid her to see him. Alice said that on that fateful evening she showed her husband received from the detective pictures, which were captured Marcos with his mistress, but he only made him angry. He slapped his wife, and then, according to her, everything was as if in a fog. Alice does not remember how she got a gun in her hands, from which she shot her husband, and later, realizing what had happened, she decided to dispose of the body, making it look as if he disappeared without a trace. Alice had experience as a nurse and was familiar with human anatomy, and her husband had taught her how to skin and cut up animal carcasses, for which they had the necessary tools at home. All that followed was a matter of technique. While Alice was cutting up and bagging her husband's body, their young daughter was sleeping peacefully in the next room. From the beginning, Alice's testimony raised many doubts and questions. In addition, it soon became clear that the very pictures and videos proving Marcos's cheating, his wife received from the hands of a private detective only on May 20th, that is, after she had killed her husband. Then, as I said, Alice took these photos and videos to the parents of the businessman, saying that Marcos had abandoned her by running away with his mistress. We also managed to find Natasha Lima, who appeared in court as a witness. According to her, Marcos himself wanted a divorce, but frankly afraid of his wife, saying that she was mentally unstable and capable of terrible things. The last time Natasha saw her lover the day before his disappearance, he complained about the constant scandals in the family and said that after the sale of the company is going to move to live in Florida, where he plans to establish a new company. Taking Alice with him was not part of his plans. He was going to divorce her and forget her like a terrible dream. Another terrible discovery was the discovery by experts of blood in the lungs of the dead man, which indicated that Marcos was still alive and trying to breathe when his wife separated his head from the body. This is wild and horrifying. Alice herself vehemently denied this, insisting that he died instantly from a bullet. The pathologist also found that the same bullet entered Marcos's head at a rather odd angle, as if he was sitting or lying down, not expecting to be shot. So he didn't even try to defend himself or dodge. This contradicted Alice's account of her husband attacking her and her trying to defend herself. On top of that, almost all the witnesses who testified at the trial denied that Matsunagi could have hit his wife. Yes, he had a difficult character, could say various hurtful words, but in life never raised a hand on anyone. Everything looked as if Alice herself made up this episode, because Marcos could not refute anything. As a result, the court found Alice guilty of premeditated murder with particular cruelty and attempting to conceal the crime. Alice Matsunaga was sentenced to 20 years in prison, which many considered an extremely lenient punishment for such a crime. The parents of the deceased man are now responsible for the upbringing of their daughter. On June 8, 2018, fishermen aboard a commercial vessel near the Long Island Strait noticed something unusual in the water. Closer inspection from the deck revealed it to be a man's body. The fishermen immediately reported their discovery to the Coast Guard. Police arriving at the scene retrieved the body of a young man from the shore. They noted unexplained bruises and abrasions on the body. It was later identified as Spencer Mackford, who had been reported missing a few days earlier along with his girlfriend, Sophia McKenna. To determine the circumstances of Spencer's demise, his body was sent for examination. The autopsy results indicated that drowning was the cause of death. Experts found no signs of violence, and all injuries were attributed to water. It's important to note that the details of the autopsy were not disclosed. The same weekend Spencer and his girlfriend disappeared, 2 other men also went missing in the area. Their bodies were later found, having drowned as well. From the outset, the police believed these were tragic accidents due to unfavorable circumstances, leading to the young individuals drowning. No other theories about the incident were considered at the time. However, the body of Spencer's companion, Sophia McKenna, was never found. This enigmatic tale unfolded on the night of May 27, 2018, in the small town of Groton, located in Connecticut, in the northeastern United States. The case remains unsolved, raising more questions than answers. The main characters of the story are 2 young people who decided to take a walk and visit the lighthouse in New London, situated on the banks of the Thames River and considered a mystical place by the locals. The historic lighthouse, constructed in 1909, is famous for rumors about mysterious phenomena associated with the ghost of its first keeper, Ernie. According to legend, Ernie's beloved left him, and in despair, he ended his life by jumping from the lighthouse's roof. Since then, locals and visitors have reported strange occurrences at the lighthouse. Some speak of unexplained phenomena, such as doors and windows opening by themselves, while others mention bedsheets slipping off beds. Sailors have told of radios turning on without apparent reason and ships mysteriously unmooring from the shore. Consequently, the lighthouse has become the focus of numerous television programs dedicated to paranormal phenomena. Although these claims are merely rumors, the place continues to attract people with its mysterious and unusual aura. Spencer and Sophia were among those who had long dreamed of visiting this enigmatic lighthouse and set out there on the eve of Memorial Day. However, something went awry that night. What exactly happened remains unknown. Family members and the police can only speculate based on the few available facts. On Saturday, the 27th, Sophia McKenn's friend Austin tried to contact her, but got no response to his calls. At first, he didn't think much of it, knowing that Sophia usually slept late. However, after several hours of unsuccessful attempts to reach her through calls and messages, Austin grew worried. He contacted Sophia's mother, Michelle, to find out if Sophia had called her the previous night. Michelle hadn't checked her cell phone, as her younger daughter had been playing with it since morning. When Michelle finally looked at her phone, she found 7 missed calls from an unknown number. Trying to call back, she reached the voicemail of Spencer, a friend of her daughter's, and realized those might have been calls from Sophia. Michelle tried to reach Sophia but also got no response. Panic set in, and she and Austin immediately began searching. Austin called all the local hospitals, while Michelle filed a missing persons report with the police. Contacting Spencer's family, they learned that his relatives were also worried since he hadn't shown up for an important family gathering and hadn't responded to their attempts to contact him. They went to Spencer's apartment but found no signs of his presence there the previous night. Spencer's father knew his son had been meeting with Sophia the evening before, which caused concern for him and his wife due to the problem Sophia was facing. Spencer's mother mentioned that her son had planned to go fishing with a friend, but she felt he was lying and actually intended to meet Sophia that evening.
She last spoke with her son at 10 p.m. when he wished her good night. Realizing something had happened, Spencer's family also reported his and his girlfriend's disappearance to the police. Around 6:30 p.m., the police began searching for the missing young people. At that time, Austin contacted the sheriff to inform him that he had information about where Sophia and Spencer were the previous night. He explained that he knew this because he had allowed Sophia to go there. Austin also mentioned that he stumbled upon a video posted by Sophia on Snapchat the previous night. Sophia had recorded the video on Spencer's mobile phone while they were on a boat heading towards the lighthouse. The footage showed the back of a young man rowing towards the lighthouse. Everything looked good, and they were having fun. Later, Sophia uploaded this video to her Snapchat account. Later, at 2 a.m., a photograph of Sophia was uploaded to Spencer's chat.
She was playfully posing with the concrete barrier of the lighthouse in the background, marked with a "Do Not Cross" sign. What happened just minutes after this photograph remains a complete mystery. 5 minutes after the photograph was posted, at 2:05 a.m., the first call from Spencer's mobile phone was made to Michelle, Sophia's mother, followed by 3 more calls at 2:06, 2:08, and the last call at 2:09. Michelle, who was asleep at the time, didn't answer any of the calls. No voicemails or text messages were left, and the 911 service also didn't receive any calls from that number that night. The photos and videos posted by the young people confirmed that they were indeed at the lighthouse. As a result, the police immediately dispatched 20 different Coast Guard units to the area. The Coast Guard, firefighters, and police conducted searches by air, sea, and land. The first discovery made by the police was Sophia's car, parked on the university campus. Inside the car, they also found her cell phone. Meanwhile, on the same night, the Coast Guard discovered a T-shirt which Spencer had been wearing in the video. The police theorized that Spencer might have used it to secure the boat to the shore. The search continued throughout the night and the following day. Soon, a storm began, and state authorities announced the suspension of the search for the young people until new leads or signs of their possible whereabouts emerged. This decision deeply shocked their families and friends, but they continued their own search efforts, hanging pictures and spreading information about Spencer and Sophia's disappearance throughout the city. They appealed to the public to report any available information. However, despite the large number of people on the streets at the time of the young people's disappearance, no witnesses came forward. The family's searches continued for several days, but all questions remained unanswered. What happened? Why did Sophia repeatedly call her mother? Why didn't she leave a voicemail or call the police? There were many speculations and assumptions. Could they have consumed something illicit? Indeed, they had broken the law by stealing a boat from the campus and heading to the lighthouse without permission. It's likely Sophia feared they could be held accountable, and thus chose not to contact the police, as a few days prior, she and Spencer had already had legal issues. Spencer had been detained for driving under the influence, and Sophia had faced charges for aggressive behavior. Perhaps for this reason, she preferred to contact her mother rather than the police. However, it's unknown what other circumstances were present in Sophia's life at that moment. She might have been in a state of panic and unable to think clearly. Everyone's reaction to such situations can be unpredictable. Meanwhile, detectives tried to reconstruct the events of that day. May 26, 2018, began as a typical day. It was sunny and warm, with the upcoming weekend promising plenty of fun. The city was gearing up for Memorial Day celebrations, a national holiday. Sophia had the day off, but Spencer was scheduled to cover a shift for a colleague from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Afterwards, the young couple planned to meet up and join the city's festivities. Sophia and Spencer intended to spend the rest of the day together, including a visit to the mysterious lighthouse, famous for its paranormal phenomena, which they were eager to experience for themselves. The details of what happened after Spencer's shift ended remain unknown. It's unclear where they went or if they met anyone, and there's no information about whether they had been drinking. However, it was established that Sophia parked her car at the University of Connecticut campus around 2 a.m. For some reason, she left her cell phone in the car. Perhaps she forgot it, or it was out of charge, and she decided not to take it. The pair then illegally took a sailboat without a mast or engine, weighing 14 pounds and equipped only with oars. They pushed it into the water and set off towards the lighthouse, navigating by the rocky shores. Clearly it was unsafe, considering the lack of safety equipment in the boat. Likely they were not afraid to embark on this journey due to Spencer's confidence in his aquatic skills. He had been a proficient swimmer and boat handler since childhood. That's all the investigators managed to gather about the events of that night. On Monday evening, while scanning the surroundings from a search helicopter, the police discovered a white and blue sailboat stuck in the rocks, covered with a layer of dust. The vessel was located 12 kilometers west of the lighthouse. According to police reports, this was likely the same boat that went missing from the campus and might have been used by Spencer and Sophia, although this was not conclusively established. Fingerprints were found on the boat, but they were never analyzed or the results made public to determine if they matched the fingerprints of the young couple. There were also discrepancies regarding the type of vessel used. Initially, it was reported as a kayak, but later information suggested it was a white sailboat with a red inscription. In their search for clues, investigators thoroughly examined the backgrounds of Sophia McKenna and Spencer Mugford. Sophia McKenna was born on March 7, 1996, in North Stonington, Connecticut. At the time of the incident, she was 21 years old and lived in Groton, Connecticut, USA. She was the daughter of Michelle from her first marriage and grew up with her brother Justin and younger sister Grace. Sophia was very caring towards her siblings, whom she dearly loved. As a child, Sophia was happy and intelligent, displaying unique qualities. She was active, full of energy, and always led a vibrant and fulfilling life. However, her life was deeply impacted by her parents' divorce when she was around 7 years old, leaving a profound psychological scar. During her high school years, Sophia was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which caused her depression. This mental illness is characterized by drastic mood swings, including manic episodes or hypomania. Sophia experienced emotional lows, such as depression with sadness and melancholy, alternating with manic episodes of euphoria. These mood swings could affect her behavior and clarity of thought. Sophia received treatment, including medication and psychotherapy to manage symptoms. However, there is no cure for bipolar disorder. It presents a challenge for both the patient and their family. The illness significantly impacted Sophia's daily life. Her behavior became unpredictable and her life was chaotic. She had unstable relationships, and the people she interacted with often displayed complex behavior. In 2015, Sophia met Austin. Bright and cheerful, she immediately captured the young man's heart. He pursued the attractive Sophia beautifully and persistently, and they soon started a relationship that lasted 3 years. However, this relationship was rather unpleasant for both Sophia and her mother, Michelle. Austin was a problematic young man, somewhat aggressive, and used anabolic steroids for sports, making their relationship quite unstable. The young couple often argued and yelled at each other, even to the point of physical altercations. Due to her mental health issues, Sophia was typically the instigator of these conflicts. On several occasions, Austin's aggressive outbursts led to injuries to Sophia, requiring hospital visits. About a month before the incident, Sophia discovered Austin's infidelity and decided to end the relationship. However, they continued to see each other sporadically. Despite her struggles, Sophia tried to move forward. She was a very attractive young woman and briefly became a model for a local company, advertising their jeans. This helped her finance her education. She eventually graduated as a massage therapist and found employment at an exclusive spa called The Red Door in a luxurious hotel. It was here that she met Spencer Mugford, her 20-year-old colleague. Spencer, originally from Florida, was a sea enthusiast and an experienced swimmer working as a sailing instructor. He came from a loving family who had high hopes for his future. Spencer and Sophia quickly bonded over shared interests and similar wavelengths. They reportedly dated for some time, but neither of their families approved, as the young couple was frequently surrounded by trouble. According to Michelle, Sophia's mother, she was deeply concerned about Sophia's well-being, especially since Sophia and Austin continued to meet and often consumed alcohol, which had become almost a daily occurrence. Ultimately, Sophia's relationship with Spencer did not last, and they decided to remain friends. The exact reason for this remains unclear, though it appears Sophia might have returned to her ex-boyfriend, Austin. Despite this, Sophia and Spencer continued to spend a lot of time together, both at work and outside of it, including on their last day. After several days of searching, when fishermen discovered Spencer's body, his family wrote an obituary in the local media. Sophia's family did the same, but they continued to hold out hope and kept searching. They repeatedly tried to recall the events leading up to the disappearance, attempting to figure out what the young people did that evening and whether they met anyone on their last day. However, no new information emerged. It was unclear if there were any other calls besides the ones to Michelle's number from Spencer's phone, as his mobile was never found, and the police did not provide cell operator records. Cameras at the lighthouse and the campus were reportedly not working, so there were no video recordings of that night's events. It was also revealed that the lighthouse was never checked, even though it should have been done by the authorities immediately after the couple's disappearance. In July 2018, Sophia McKenna's close relatives created a Facebook page titled "Searching for Sophia McKenna" to keep the case alive in public memory. The page served as a platform for sharing information, brochures, and pleas for any information from the public. Weeks after the disappearance, a strange incident occurred. Michelle received a message from Sophia's social media account requesting money. Since the police were in possession of Sophia's phone, this message raised suspicions, suggesting a possible hacker's involvement. The investigation into Spencer's death and Sophia's disappearance hit a dead end. The police provided no conclusive findings. Unofficially, several theories about the incident circulated. One theory involved Austin, Sophia's ex-boyfriend, and his possible involvement in the young couple's disappearance. Some speculated that Austin might have attacked Sophia, and his friends helped him dispose of Spencer. Their tumultuous relationship, known for frequent arguments and physical altercations, was a matter of public discussion. Michelle, Sophia's mother, witnessed several of their disputes. A month before the disappearance, serious issues arose when Sophia learned of Austin's infidelity on May 8, 2018, and ended the relationship. In what could have been an act of revenge or a new start, Sophia dated another guy, bringing him to her apartment. Austin, infuriated, rushed to her apartment, where neighbors witnessed him furiously banging and kicking the door, hurling insults at Sophia. After about 15 minutes of silence, thinking Austin had left, Sophia opened the door. However, Austin was still there, attempting to push Sophia and enter the apartment. Fortunately, Sophia managed to close the door quickly. Neighbors heard his threats to cut her throat if she didn't open the door. By then, police and Michelle had arrived, and Austin was arrested. The next day, May 9th, a court order became effective. In her statement, Sophia mentioned previous attacks by Austin and provided photos of her injuries. She expressed fear for her life due to his stalking.
A restraining order prohibited Austin from being in the same area as Sophia. However, Sophia later felt guilty, and the restrictions were revised. Now, Austin was only prohibited from being in the same apartment as her. The man with Sophia at the time refused to disclose his identity and did not cooperate with the police. Initially, Michelle claimed it was Spencer with Sophia, but later changed her statement. However, a colleague Sophia trusted revealed that it was indeed him. Sophia and Spencer's colleagues confirmed that the two were in a relationship at the time of their disappearance, acting like a couple both at work and outside. Witnesses also recounted an incident at the hotel where Austin, Sophia's ex, showed up at her workplace and publicly threatened her. Nevertheless, Austin and his father participated in the search for the missing couple using a private helicopter and distributed flyers with their images throughout the city. Austin posted on social media, asserting that Sophia was his girlfriend for 3 years and that she had no romantic relationship with Spencer, just friendship. This post, seemingly emphasizing Sophia's association with him rather than her disappearance, appeared odd to many. On July 10th, a memorial day for Sophia was organized by her family and friends. Austin attended the event with Michelle and later posted a now-deleted message on social media. "Rest in peace, baby. We'll see each other soon." These actions raised eyebrows among acquaintances. Austin claimed to authorities that he spent the entire day with Sophia on May 26th and that they continued to meet despite the court order, even making plans for the next day. A friend of Austin stated that around 3 a.m. on the night of the incident, Austin texted Sophia claiming to be at the gym with a friend. However, this was doubtful as gyms are closed at that hour. His family maintained he was home before heading to the gym. An undisclosed witness reported that Austin and his brother were invited to a party that day. Austin initially intended to go, but later messaged saying he was tired and wouldn't attend. This raises questions about Austin's whereabouts when Sophia and Spencer disappeared, with no clear answers available. Austin's acquaintances describe him as temperamental, possibly exacerbated by steroid use. There were rumors of Austin, his brother, and a friend having connections with the Groton police. Also, a woman from Austin's family was allegedly married to the police chief, who was investigating Sophia's case and had complaints of police violence against him.
However, the reliability of these claims, provided by Austin's friend with a criminal past, is questionable. The day after a YouTube channel dedicated to Long Island disappearances posted a video about Sophia, Austin removed all photos of them together from his social media. This action caused confusion, especially since Sophia's fate was still uncertain. One theory is that Austin had found a new girlfriend and wanted to avoid complications. However, the complete removal of all photos with Sophia seemed unusual. Furthermore, just days after Sophia's disappearance, Austin's involvement in the search noticeably waned. When he met with investigators, he appeared calm and composed, not visibly distressed by the loss of someone close. However, this is insufficient for any accusations against Austin. People react differently to stress. One theory suggests Sophia was killed to prevent her from testifying against Austin in a domestic violence case. Without her testimony, there wouldn't have been enough evidence, and the case could have been dismissed. This is exactly what happened in the summer of 2018 when the case against Austin was dropped. It's important to note that Austin is not officially a suspect. This theory remains speculative, and the investigation continues. Another version speculates that Sophia and Spencer may have encountered dangerous individuals at the lighthouse. It was a busy day due to the holiday, but witnesses either didn't remember them or didn't find the information significant as no one reported to the police. Sophia's mother theorized her daughter might have been kidnapped or fallen victim to human trafficking, but there's no evidence or ransom demands to support this. The police also considered the possibility of an accident due to reckless actions and decisions. The young couple set out in an unprepared boat without life jackets into strong currents. Once at the lighthouse, they moored the boat with Spencer's t-shirt. They took photos and then realized the boat had drifted away. Relying on his swimming experience, Spencer may have underestimated the water's low temperature. The darkness, which often distorts distance perception, could have made him think the boat was closer. Physically tired from his workday and the swim to the lighthouse, Spencer might have drowned. Realizing she couldn't see or hear Spencer, Sophia tried calling her mother for help. In desperation, she might have jumped in to assist Spencer and drowned as well. Sophia wasn't a strong swimmer, making it unlikely she'd jump into such conditions. However, under the influence of alcohol, she might have made an irrational decision. It's also possible she was walking on the lighthouse's narrow ledge, trying to spot Spencer, stumbled and fell with her phone, then got swept away by the current and drowned. These theories remain relevant, though others exist too. None is the official version, and they lack suspects or culprits, circulating mainly on social media. Sophia's family and friends continue to search for her, desperate to uncover what happened and where she is. In 2019, an independent detective found several bones near the shore and immediately reported it to the police. However, the investigators who arrived at the scene deemed the bones to be of animal origin. The remains were never collected, and due to the high cost, no forensic examination was conducted to determine if they were human. There are many aspects of this case that raise suspicions and warrant a thorough investigation. After all, this is about a missing person with a family in anguish, seeking answers. Sophia undoubtedly deserves continued search efforts. Numerous bodies of other missing individuals have been discovered in these waters, but not Sophia's. No new information has surfaced in her case, and the mystery of what happened that night at the lighthouse remains unsolved.